The wind off the Snake River plain cut through my dress uniform like I was wearing nothing at all. 13 years old, and I stood there at the Idaho Veterans Cemetery watching them fold the flag that had covered my father's casket. The honor guard moved with mechanical precision, crisp and clean, 7 folds that turned the stars and stripes into a tight triangle. They handed it to Tyler, not me. He was 23 and technically an adult. I was just a kid who'd lost everything in the span of 2 weeks. My father, Jack Blake, died on a mountain doing what he loved. Or at least that's what everyone kept saying at the funeral. Hunting accident. 1 shot. The sheriff called it a tragedy. Tyler called it in from a satellite phone somewhere up in the Wallowa Mountains, his voice cracking as he told the dispatcher our dad was gone. By the time search and rescue brought the body down, it was too late for questions. Too late for anything except a closed casket and a lot of people I didn't know shaking my hand and saying they were sorry for my loss. Tyler stood next to me in his own uniform, army fatigue still crisp from his recent discharge. He'd done 4 years, came home different than when he left, harder around the eyes. He put his hand on my shoulder as they played taps, and I remember thinking he was the only family I had left in the world. Mom had died when I was 5, some kind of cancer that ate through her faster than the doctors could cut it out. Now Dad was in a box going into the ground, and Tyler and I were orphans in our 20s and teens. The cemetery sat on a hill overlooking the valley where we'd grown up, brown grass and sage stretching out to mountains that turned purple in the distance. Dad's plot was in a section reserved for veterans, rows of white headstones marking men who'd served their country and come home to die quietly in Idaho. Jack Blake's stone was simple. Name, rank, dates. Korean War veteran. Nothing about the ranch he'd built from nothing. Nothing about the 2 sons he'd raised alone after Mom passed. Just the facts, clean and cold. I found myself thinking about the last conversation I'd had with Dad before he went on that hunting trip. He'd come to visit me at Riverside the week before, brought me a birthday card even though my birthday was still 2 months away. October was a busy time on the ranch, he'd said, might not get another chance to drive down before winter set in. Inside the card he'd written, in his careful handwriting, "Connor, 13 is almost a man. The ranch is going to need you someday. Don't forget where you came from. Love, Dad." I'd kept that card in my nightstand drawer, reading it sometimes when the loneliness got too heavy. Dad believed I'd come back to the ranch. He'd believed I'd be part of it. That belief felt like the only inheritance that mattered. After the burial, people gathered at the Riverside group home, where I'd been staying since Dad went into the hospital that last time. Tyler had put me there temporarily, he said, just until things got sorted out. The home was run by a woman named Margaret Hayes, 50-something with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too many broken kids come through her doors. She made sure there was food at the reception, sandwiches and potato salad, coffee in big silver urns. People ate and talked in low voices, and I sat in the corner, wanting everyone to leave. Tyler found me there as the sun started to set. He'd taken off his uniform jacket and his white shirt was wrinkled from the long day. He sat down next to me on the worn couch, the flag folded on his lap. "This is yours," he said, holding it out. "Dad would want you to have it." I took the flag. It was heavier than I expected, all that symbolic weight pressed into cotton and thread. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. "I talked to the lawyer today," Tyler continued, "about the ranch. Dad didn't have a will. Can you believe that? 30 years building that place, and he never wrote down what should happen to it." I looked up at him. "What does that mean?" "It means it goes into something called probate. State decides who gets what. Since you're a minor and I'm not, things get complicated." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from childhood when he was stressed. "I'm going to handle it, Connor. I promise. I'll get the ranch situation figured out, and when you turn 18, we'll run it together, like Dad wanted, brothers before everything." Together? The word felt important, like a contract. "Together," he confirmed. "You and me. I've got some things I need to sort out first. Find a job. Get stable. But I swear to you, little brother, I'm coming back for you. We're going to make that ranch work. We're going to honor Dad's memory the right way." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my brother, my only family, standing there in the ruins of our father's funeral, promising me a future. I was 13 and desperate for someone to tell me everything would be okay. I thought about all the times Tyler had protected me as kids. The time in 3rd grade when Derek Paulson had tried to steal my lunch money and Tyler, 5 years older and already starting to fill out, had grabbed Derek by his shirt collar and told him if he ever touched his little brother again, he'd regret it. Derek never bothered me after that. Or the time I'd crashed my bike trying to jump the irrigation ditch behind the barn, and Tyler had carried me back to the house on his shoulders. Told Dad I'd just fallen, nothing serious, no need to ground me for doing something stupid. Tyler had always been my protector, my hero, the big brother who made the world a little less scary. Tyler left the next morning. He had a job lined up in Nevada, construction work that paid decent. He promised to call every week, to visit when he could, to keep working on the legal stuff with the ranch. I watched his truck disappear down the long driveway of Riverside and told myself it was temporary. Just a few years, then we'd be together again. 15 years passed like water through a sieve. I joined the Marines at 18, straight out of Riverside the day I aged out of the system. Tyler had called less and less over the years, his visits dropping from monthly to quarterly to almost never. When I asked about the ranch, he always said the same thing. Still working on it. Legal stuff takes time. Be patient. So I stopped asking and focused on becoming the kind of man Dad would have been proud of. 2 tours in Afghanistan, a chest full of medals I never wore, and a diagnosis I didn't ask for. Post-traumatic stress disorder, the VA doctor said. Not uncommon for combat veterans. Here's some pills, here's a therapist, here's a monthly check. Welcome home. The pills made me foggy. The therapist was nice enough but didn't understand what it felt like to watch your friends die in the dirt 7,000 miles from home. The checks kept coming, though, enough to pay rent on a studio apartment for Boise, enough to buy groceries and gas, enough to feel like I was slowly disappearing into a life I hadn't chosen. 6 months ago, I checked myself into the VA hospital in Boise after 3 days of not sleeping, seeing things in the corners of my vision that weren't there. The doctors called it an acute episode, adjusted my medication, kept me for observation. Margaret Hayes came to visit twice a week, even though Riverside was 2 hours away. She brought magazines and homemade cookies, and never once made me feel like I was broken beyond repair. When they discharged me last Tuesday, she was waiting in the lobby with a smile and a manila envelope. "This came for you at Riverside," she said, handing it over. "Looks official." The return address read Harmon and Associates Law Firm, Burns, Oregon. I didn't know anyone in Burns. Didn't know why a lawyer would be writing to me at a group home I hadn't lived in for a decade. "You going to open it?" Margaret asked. I tore the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of letterhead, typed and formal. The language was dense, full of legal terms I had to read twice to understand. Estate of Jack Blake. Probate proceedings. Request for beneficiary to attend settlement meeting. A date, a time, an address. Please confirm attendance. "It's about my dad," I said, my voice sounding strange in the quiet hospital lobby. "They settled his estate." Margaret looked at me over her reading glasses. "After 15 years? Says here they need me to sign some paperwork, final distribution of assets." I kept reading, the words blurring together. Tyler must have finally gotten it sorted out, but something felt wrong. If Tyler had settled the estate, why hadn't he called me himself? Why was I finding out through a lawyer's letter forwarded to a group home? Margaret drove me back to my apartment in Boise. I sat in the passenger seat with the letter on my lap, reading it over and over. The meeting was scheduled for next Monday, 10 in the morning. 4 days away. I should call Tyler, I thought. I should ask what this is about. But something stopped me. Some instinct honed in the Marines. The feeling you get right before an ambush, when the air goes too quiet and your skin starts to crawl. I spent the weekend researching probate law on my laptop, reading everything I could find about estate settlement and beneficiary rights. Learned that when someone dies without a will in Idaho, their property gets divided according to state law. Learned that minor children have rights even if they can't claim property immediately. Learned that probate can take months or years depending on complexity. 15 years seemed excessive, unless someone was deliberately dragging it out. Sunday night I packed a bag, clean jeans, a button-down shirt, my Marine Corps dress shoes polished to a mirror shine. I didn't own a suit, but I owned pride, and that would have to be enough. Margaret offered to drive me to Burns, but I declined. This felt like something I needed to do alone. I rented a car, a basic sedan that smelled like pine air freshener and old cigarettes, and left Boise at dawn. The drive took 6 hours, straight shot east through high desert and mountains. Landscape so empty it felt like driving through the end of the world. I stopped once for gas and coffee at a nowhere truck stop, ate a sandwich that tasted like cardboard, got back on the road. The closer I got to Burns, the more familiar the country became. This was where I'd grown up, this sagebrush and rimrock, this endless sky. I'd spent my childhood here before Dad died, before everything fell apart. The Blake Ranch was somewhere north of Burns, 1,800 acres my father had pieced together over 30 years. I remembered parts of it, fragments. The main house with its wide porch, the barn where Dad kept his tools, the sound of cattle in the morning. Tyler and I riding in the back of Dad's truck, dust billowing behind us as we checked fences in the summer heat. Good memories, or at least I thought they were good. Time had a way of polishing the past until you couldn't trust what was real and what you'd invented to make the loss easier. I reached Burns at 9:30 Monday morning. The town looked tired, Main Street lined with buildings that had seen better decades. Feed store, diner, bank, post office. A few pickup trucks parked at angles in front of the hardware store. I found the law office in a brick building near the courthouse. Second floor, brass plaque by the door. Harmon and Associates, established 1987. I climbed the stairs and pushed through the heavy wood door into a reception area that smelled like old paper and furniture polish. The receptionist was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair pulled into a neat bun. She smiled when I walked in. "Can I help you?" "Connor Blake, I have a 10 o'clock appointment." Her smile flickered just for a second, like she knew something I didn't. "Of course. Mr. Harmon is expecting you. Conference room at the end of the hall. Can I get you coffee or water?" "I'm fine, thanks." I walked down the hallway, hardwood floors creaking under my feet. The walls were lined with diplomas and bar certifications, photos of the Columbia River Gorge in Mount Hood. Through an open door, I caught a glimpse of an office with a mahogany desk and leather chairs. Money, the kind that came from years of billable hours. The conference room door was open. Inside sat Tyler. He'd changed in the 2 years since I'd seen him last. Put on weight, not fat but solid, the kind that came from physical labor. His hair was shorter, graying at the temples. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, work boots that had seen actual work. He stood when I walked in and I saw something flash across his face. Surprise maybe, or guilt. "Connor," he said, "you came. Got a letter saying I needed to be here." I stayed near the door, didn't move to shake his hand or hug him. "What's this about, Tyler?" Before he could answer, a man in a suit entered behind me. 50s, balding, expensive watch. He carried a leather briefcase and had the carefully neutral expression lawyers cultivate. "Mr. Blake," he said, extending his hand to me. "Robert Harmon, thank you for coming. Please have a seat." I sat across from Tyler. Harmon took the head of the table, opened his briefcase, pulled out a thick folder. He laid it on the table between us like evidence at a trial. "Gentlemen, we're here to finalize the probate of Jack Blake's estate. I apologize for the delay in getting this matter resolved. There were complications with the filing, some documentation issues that took time to sort through, but we've reached a settlement that I believe is fair to all parties." "Settlement?" I looked at Tyler. "I thought you were handling this. You said you'd take care of it." Tyler didn't meet my eyes, just stared at the table like it held answers. Harmon cleared his throat. "Mr. Connor Blake, your father's estate has been settled according to the terms of his last will and testament. The property known as the Blake Ranch, including all associated land, livestock, equipment, and structures, has been transferred to Tyler James Blake. You, Connor Blake, are to receive a cash payment of $50,000 as per the will's specifications." The words hit like a punch. "What will? Dad didn't have a will." "I'm afraid that's incorrect." Harmon slid a document across the table. "This will was located approximately 18 months ago during a thorough search of the ranch property. It was found in a safe in the barn, properly executed and witnessed. Your father clearly intended for Tyler to inherit the ranch operations given his age and experience." I picked up the will with shaking hands. It was dated October 15th, 2009, 2 weeks before Dad died. The language was formal, legal, and devastatingly clear. "I, Jack Blake, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including the Blake Ranch, to my son, Tyler James Blake. To my son, Connor Blake, I leave the sum of $50,000 to be held in trust until his 21st birthday. This reflects my belief that Tyler is best suited to continue the family ranching tradition. This is a lie. My voice came out too loud in the quiet room. Dad wouldn't have done this. He wouldn't have cut me out. I understand this is difficult, Harmon said in that practiced, sympathetic tone, but the will is legally valid. It was properly signed and witnessed by two individuals, both of whom have provided affidavits confirming its authenticity. Who witnessed it? Harmon consulted his notes. Ramon Cortez and Donna Price. Mr. Cortez was a ranch hand who worked for your father for many years. Miss Price was a family friend. Let me see their affidavits. Harmon hesitated, glanced at Tyler, then pulled out two more documents. I read them carefully, looking for anything wrong. Ramon Cortez's signature was neat, precise. Donna Price's was looping, feminine. Both swore they had been present on October 15th, 2009, when Jack Blake had signed his will of his own free will and sound mind. Something about it felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Tyler, I said, looking at my brother for the first time since this nightmare started, did you know about this will? He finally met my eyes. I found it like Harmon said, searching the barn for Dad's papers. It was in his old gun safe. And you didn't tell me? For 18 months you knew Dad had cut me out of his will, and you didn't think to mention it? I was trying to protect you. You were dealing with your discharge, the VA hospital. I didn't want to add to your stress. So you let me believe for 15 years that we'd work the ranch together. You let me think I still had a home to come back to. You do have a home. The 50,000, that's enough to start over. And Connor, you're always welcome at the ranch. Nothing changes between us. I stood so fast the chair scraped loud against the floor. Everything changes. You took my inheritance. You took the one thing Dad left me. Dad left you money. He left me responsibility. There's a difference. I wanted to hit him. Wanted to reach across that table and make him hurt the way I was hurting. But I'd learned control in the Marines, learned that violence solved nothing. So I just stood there, shaking with rage and grief. Harmon pushed a pen and paper toward me. Mr. Blake, I need you to sign these documents acknowledging receipt of the settlement terms. The 50,000 will be transferred to an account in your name within 30 days. And if I refuse, then the matter goes to court, which will be expensive and time-consuming. The will is valid, Mr. Blake. You'll lose. Better to accept the settlement and move forward. I looked at Tyler one more time, saw a stranger wearing my brother's face, saw betrayal in human form. I want copies of everything, the will, the affidavits, all of it. Of course, Harmon said, relief evident in his voice. I'll have them made immediately. I signed the papers because what choice did I have? Harmon collected them, shook my hand with false warmth, and left Tyler and me alone in the conference room. Connor, Tyler started, don't. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. I need you to understand this wasn't personal. Dad made his choice. He thought I could handle the ranch better. That's not a reflection on you. He died 2 weeks after signing this will. Doesn't that strike you as convenient? Tyler's face went hard. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying it's interesting timing. It was a hunting accident. The sheriff investigated. There was nothing suspicious. Right, nothing suspicious at all. I picked up the folder Harmon had left, the one with my copies. I'm going to the ranch, our ranch, the one Dad built. I want to see what you've done with my inheritance. Connor, maybe that's not a good idea right now. You're upset. I'm going to the ranch, I repeated. You going to stop me? He didn't answer. Just watch me walk out of that conference room, out of that building, into the bright Idaho morning that felt nothing like home anymore. Margaret was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car, even though I'd told her not to come. She took one look at my face and knew. He screwed you. $50,000? That's what my father thought I was worth. She pulled me into a hug right there in the parking lot. This woman who'd been more of a parent than anyone since Mom died. I stood there rigid, not crying, not feeling anything except the hollow certainty that I'd been abandoned twice. Once when Dad died. Once when Tyler stole what should have been mine. What are you going to do? Margaret asked when she finally let go. I'm going to see the ranch. Then I'm going to figure out if that will is real or if my brother's a liar and a thief. Connor, be careful. If Tyler forged that will, then I'll make him pay for it. We got in my rental car and I gave Margaret the address I'd found on the legal papers. North on Highway 78, then east on a county road that turned to gravel after 5 miles. The drive took 40 minutes, passing through high desert landscape that looked like the surface of Mars, all red rock and sparse vegetation, mountains rising in the distance like ancient sentinels. The ranch appeared suddenly, the house and outbuildings visible from the county road. I turned onto the long driveway, dust billowing behind us. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The house looked the same as I remembered. Log construction with a wraparound porch, metal roof gleaming in the sun. But there were differences. New truck parked out front, expensive looking, black and chrome, the kind ranchers bought when money wasn't tight. The barn had been repainted, fresh red against the blue sky, and I could see new metal roofing where Dad's old shingles used to leak every spring. Cattle dotted the pastures beyond the fence line, Angus mostly, their black coats glossy in the afternoon light. More cattle than I remembered Dad ever running, maybe 150 head where he'd kept 100. The expansion required capital, investment, the kind of money that didn't come from honest ranching in lean years. I parked near the house and just sat there for a moment, taking it in. This was supposed to be mine, this land, this legacy, this connection to the father I'd lost. The porch where I'd sat with Dad on summer evenings, watching thunderstorms roll across the valley. The barn where he'd taught me to change oil in the tractor, his patient hands guiding mine until I could do it myself. The fields where I'd learned to ride, to work cattle, to understand the rhythm of seasons that govern ranch life. All of it stolen by the brother who'd promised to protect it for me. "You okay?" Margaret asked softly. "No, but I need to see it anyway." We got out. The air smelled like dust and soy and cattle, achingly familiar. I heard the wind in the cottonwood trees down by the creek where Tyler and I used to catch crawdads on hot summer days, the distant lowing of a cow calling her calf, the cry of a hawk overhead hunting field mice in the timothy grass. Sounds from my childhood, from a life I thought I could return to. The screen door on the house creaked in the wind, the same creak I'd heard 1,000 times, coming and going. Dad had always meant to oil those hinges, but never got around to it. Some things, it seemed, Tyler hadn't changed. But other things he had. I walked around the property, Margaret trailing behind, her sensible shoes crunching on gravel. The fencing was new in several sections, metal T-posts and wire replacing the wooden posts and barbed wire Dad had strung in the 80s. Good fencing, professionally done, stretched tight and level. The corrals had been expanded too, new holding pens and a loading chute that looked like it could handle bigger operations than Dad had ever run. Money. All of this took money. Where had Tyler gotten it? The old bunkhouse where ranch hands used to stay had been converted into something else. The windows were blacked out from the inside, heavy curtains or paint blocking any view. A heavy-duty padlock hung on the door, the kind you'd use on a storage unit holding valuables, not ranch equipment. "That's odd," Margaret said, pointing at the bunkhouse. "Tyler probably uses it for storage." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. I'd grown up on this ranch. I knew what a storage shed looked like, and this wasn't it. The power lines running to the building were too heavy, commercial grade. The ventilation ducts on the roof were new, industrial strength, and there was a faint hum coming from inside, the sound of machinery running. I tried the padlock. Solid, new, expensive. Master lock, hardened steel. Not the kind of lock you put on a storage shed full of old tack and broken machinery. I walked around the building looking for windows I could see through, but they were all covered from the inside with what looked like aluminum foil, the edges sealed with duct tape. Behind the barn, I found equipment I didn't recognize. Industrial fans, some kind of ventilation system, coils of plastic tubing. Margaret knelt and picked up one of the items, turning it over in her hands. "This is hydroponic equipment," and she said, "What?" "For growing plants without soil. You use water and nutrients." She looked at me, concern in her eyes. "Connor, this is the kind of setup people use to grow marijuana." Before I could respond, we heard the sound of an engine. A truck coming up the driveway. Fast, Tyler's truck. He pulled up next to my rental, got out, his face dark with anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Looking at what you stole from me." "I didn't steal anything. This is my property now. You need to leave." "Not until I get some answers." "What's in the bunkhouse, Tyler?" "None of your business. Looks like a grow operation to me." "That would explain the new truck, the expanded herd. You using Dad's ranch to run drugs?" Tyler's jaw clenched, a muscle working beneath the skin. I'd seen that look before, when we were kids and he was trying not to lose his temper. You don't know what you're talking about. Then show me what's in that building. If it's just storage, show me. Get off my property, Connor, now. This isn't your property. This is Dad's property, our property, and you know it. The will says different. The court says different. The deed has my name on it. That makes it mine. He took a step closer, invading my space the way he used to when we were kids, and he wanted to intimidate me into backing down. But I wasn't a kid anymore. I'd faced insurgents in Helmand Province. My brother didn't scare me. We stood there facing each other, 15 years of distance and resentment between us like a physical wall. The brother who'd protected me as a child was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd stolen my inheritance and was possibly using it for criminal enterprise. I could see it in his eyes. The calculation. He was wondering if I'd fight, if I'd make this physical, if the situation could be controlled with violence the way so many things had been in Iraq. I'm not done with this, I said quietly, keeping my voice level despite the rage burning in my chest. That will doesn't feel right. The timing doesn't make sense. Dad signs it 2 weeks before he dies? Ramon Cortez witnessed it, but he's conveniently dead, so I can't ask him about it. And Donna Price sounded scared when I talked to her, like someone told her to keep her mouth shut. Tyler's face went pale. You called Donna? I called everyone. I'm not some broken vet you can push around. I know how to investigate. I know how to fight. And if you forged that will, if you did something to Dad to get this ranch, I'm going to find out. You threatening me? I'm promising you. If you're lying, I'll prove it, and I'll take back what's mine. I pulled out my phone, held it up, and I've documented everything: the hydroponic equipment, the blacked out windows, the expensive upgrades you couldn't afford on honest ranching income. If you're running drugs, the DEA will be very interested. Something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or anger at being outmaneuvered. You're grasping at straws. I've done nothing illegal. Then you won't mind if I share these photos with law enforcement. You do that, and you'll regret it. I have friends in this county, Connor. People who will back my story over yours. You're an outsider now, a stranger. Nobody here owes you anything. Tyler moved closer, close enough that I could smell coffee on his breath. You're a broken-down vet with PTSD and a disability check. I'm a landowner with a lawyer and documentation. You come after me, and you'll end up with nothing. Go back to Boise, Connor. Forget about the ranch. Move on with your life. He turned and walked toward the house, dismissing me like I was nothing. Margaret tugged on my arm. We should go. Not yet. I pulled out my phone, started taking pictures. The bunkhouse with its padlock, the hydroponic equipment behind the barn, the license plate on Tyler's expensive truck. If my brother was running an illegal operation, I was going to document it. Tyler came back out of the house carrying something. As he got closer, I saw it was a rifle, not pointed at me, but held across his chest, a clear message. I said, leave. You going to shoot me, Tyler? Your own brother? I'm going to defend my property from trespassers. Get in your car and go. Don't come back. Margaret grabbed my arm, pulling harder this time. Connor, please, this isn't worth dying over. She was right. I got in the car, started the engine. As we drove away, I watched Tyler in the rearview mirror, standing there with that rifle, watching us leave. The brother I'd loved was gone. In his place was something I didn't recognize. We drove back to Burns in silence. Margaret finally asked where I wanted to go, and I realized I had nowhere. No home, no ranch, no family. Just anger and the growing certainty that Tyler had done something unforgivable. Take me to a hotel, I said. I'm staying in Burns until I figure this out. Margaret dropped me at a budget inn on the edge of town. 2 stories, 20 rooms, the kind of place where the AC rattled and the carpet had seen better decades. I checked in, paid for 3 nights in cash, and sat on the bed with my laptop and the folder full of documents. The will bothered me, not just emotionally, but logically. Dad had raised me to believe the ranch would be mine someday. He'd written that birthday card 2 months before he died, telling me the ranch needed me. He'd talked about teaching me to manage cattle when I got older, about how the Blake Ranch would be our family's legacy for generations. Then suddenly, 2 weeks before his death, he supposedly signed a will cutting me out completely and leaving everything to Tyler. The timeline didn't make sense. The motivation didn't make sense. And there was something else bothering me. The will was dated October 15th, 2009. Dad died October 30th. That meant he'd signed in this will, fundamentally changing his estate plan, and then gone on a hunting trip with Tyler 2 weeks later. If there had been tension between them, if Dad had been angry enough to disinherit one son in favor of another, would they have gone hunting together? Would Dad have trusted Tyler with a loaded rifle in remote mountains? Unless Tyler hadn't given him a choice. I started with the witnesses. Ramon Cortez first. A quick Google search told me he died in 2014, 5 years ago. Car accident on Highway 20 near Burns. Single vehicle collision, ran off the road into a ravine. The news article was brief, just a couple paragraphs. Ramon Cortez, 58, longtime ranch hand, survived by his wife Maria and daughter Elena. Services at St. Francis Catholic Church. No mention of suspicious circumstances. Just a tragic accident. Convenient that the man who'd supposedly witnessed Dad's will was dead and couldn't be questioned about what he'd actually seen. Donna Price was trickier. Common name. I found 3 in Oregon, 2 in Idaho. Started calling them one by one, got wrong numbers, disconnected lines. A woman who hung up when I mentioned legal documents. The frustration built with each dead end. Finally, on the 6th try, I got a hit. Yeah, this is Donna Price. Who's asking? Ms. Price, my name is Connor Blake. I'm calling about a will you supposedly witnessed in 2009 for Jack Blake. Long pause. I could hear music in the background. Maybe a TV. She was breathing into the phone, deciding whether to hang up. I don't know what you're talking about. You signed an affidavit saying you witnessed Jack Blake sign his will on October 15th, 2009. I have a copy of your signature right here in front of me. It's notarized. Official. You swore under oath that you saw my father sign that document. Another pause, longer this time. Look, I don't want any trouble. I did what I was asked to do, signed what I was told to sign. I didn't ask questions. My heart started pounding. What do you mean you were told to sign? You either witnessed the will or you didn't. I gotta go. Her voice was tight with fear. Wait, please, Ms. Price, this is my father's estate we're talking about. My inheritance. If someone paid you to sign false documents, that's fraud. You could go to jail. But if you tell me the truth now, if you help me, I can protect you. You can't protect me from shit. The bitterness in her voice was sharp. You don't know who you're dealing with. Then tell me, who am I dealing with? Was it Tyler? Did my brother pay you to sign that affidavit? I need to go. The line went dead. I called back immediately. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I left a message asking her to call me back, that it was important, that I just needed the truth, that whatever she'd done, I could help if she cooperated. But I knew she wouldn't call. Fear had been evident in her voice, the kind of fear that came from real threats, real consequences. Someone had gotten to her, told her to cooperate and keep quiet, probably paid her enough that she didn't ask questions. Tyler had paid her. I'd bet everything on it. Next, I searched for lawyers who specialized in probate fraud, found a few names, sent emails explaining my situation. Then I remembered something. A lawyer I'd met in Afghanistan, a Marine JAG officer named Wade Cooper, who'd handled some disciplinary cases in our battalion. He'd been good, smart, the kind of lawyer who cared about justice more than billable hours. Worth a shot. I kept digging, found Donna Price on social media, a Facebook page that hadn't been updated in months. Photos of her at casinos, cocktails in hand, the tired smile of someone who'd worked too many double shifts. I sent her a friend request and a message. Hi, Ms. Price. My name is Connor Blake. I'd like to talk to you about a will you witnessed in 2009. Please call me at this number. It's important. Long shot, but worth trying. Next, I searched for Wade Cooper, found his law practice in Boise, Cooper & Associates, specializing in estate law and veteran affairs. The website had a contact form. I filled it out, explaining who I was, what had happened, asking if he remembered me from Helmand Province. I hit send and closed the laptop. It was late. I was exhausted, but sleep felt impossible. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about my father, trying to remember his face without looking at photos, the way he laughed, deep and rumbling, the way he taught me to ride a horse, patient and calm, the way he looked at that ranch like it was the most important thing in the world. Had he really decided I didn't deserve it? Had I been that forgettable, that disposable? Or had Tyler done something unforgivable? My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. This is Wade Cooper. I remember you, Blake. If your brother screwed you over, I'll help you screw him back. Come to my office tomorrow, 9 a.m. We'll talk. I smiled for the first time in days. The Marines taught me a lot of things. How to shoot, how to survive, how to complete the mission no matter the cost. But the most important lesson was this: never leave a brother behind. Tyler had left me behind 15 years ago. Now I was coming back for what was mine. And I wasn't leaving until I had the truth. Wade Cooper's law office occupied the third floor of a converted warehouse in downtown Boise, the kind of building that had been renovated with exposed brick and industrial lighting, but still smelled faintly of whatever they used to manufacture there decades ago. I climbed the stairs at 8:55 in the morning, earlier than our scheduled appointment because Marines don't show up late. The reception area was sparse. A desk with nobody behind it, a few chairs that looked like they came from a government surplus sale, and walls covered with framed certificates and photos. I recognized some of them. Wade in dress blues receiving a commendation. Wade with a group of Marines in Afghanistan, all of us covered in dust and grinning like idiots. Wade in a courtroom, older but no less intense, pointing at something beyond the camera's frame. Blake! His voice came from a doorway to my left. You're early, I like that. Wade Cooper looked exactly like I remembered, just with more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes. 6 feet tall, built like someone who still hit the gym 5 days a week, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No tie, no suit jacket. This wasn't a man trying to impress clients with expensive clothes. This was a man who got results. We shook hands, his grip firm enough to remind me he could still throw a punch if needed. Good to see you, sir. None of that sir business. I'm not Jag anymore. It's Wade. He gestured toward his office. Come on, tell me about your brother. His office was bigger than I expected. Windows overlooking the street below. A massive desk covered in files and legal books. He cleared a chair for me by moving a stack of papers to the floor, then sat behind his desk and leaned back, fingers steepled. I told him everything. The funeral 15 years ago, Tyler's promises, the letter from the lawyer, the will that appeared out of nowhere, the $50,000 buyout, the ranch visit and what we'd found in the canyon. Tyler's threats, all of it spilled out in a flat recitation of facts, the way we'd brief missions in the Marines. Situation, complications, objective. Wade listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, staring at something on his desk. Your brother's a dumbass, he finally said. Sir? Wade. And I said your brother's a dumbass. Forged will, suspicious timing, witnesses that don't add up, drug operation on the property. He's left more holes than Swiss cheese. Wade pulled a legal pad toward him and started writing. Here's what we're going to do. File a petition with Harney County Probate Court to set aside the will based on fraud and forgery. Simultaneously, we investigate your father's death. If there's even a chance Tyler was involved, we use that as leverage. Can we reopen a 15-year-old death investigation? If we have new evidence suggesting it wasn't accidental, yes. Oregon has no statute of limitations on murder. He kept writing, his handwriting sharp and angular. We'll also need to document the drug activity, but carefully. You go to local law enforcement and they might be compromised. Small town, ranch owner with money, it's not hard to buy a sheriff's cooperation. I thought about what Ray had said about Sheriff Dobbs being on payroll. You think Tyler's paying off the cops? I think a man running a drug operation from a cattle ranch isn't stupid enough to do it without local protection. Wade looked up, which is why we go federal, DEA, not local. But we can't do that yet because it'll contaminate our probate case. First, we prove the will's a fraud, then we burn down his criminal enterprise. What's your fee? 40% of whatever you recover, plus costs. If we lose, you pay nothing. He extended his hand across the desk. But we won't lose. I don't like cheaters, and I especially don't like people who steal from veterans. I shook his hand. When do we start? Already started. I'm calling an investigator I use, former DEA. Name's Ray Hutchins. He'll surveil the ranch, document the drug activity, get us photos. Meanwhile, you and I are going to track down these witnesses. He tapped the legal pad where he'd written Ramon Cortez and Donna Price. Ramon's dead. Convenient for your brother. But dead men sometimes leave paper trails. And Donna Price is alive and living in Reno. We need to talk to her face to face. She might not cooperate. Everyone cooperates eventually. Bye. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point. Wade stood. Give me 2 days to file the initial paperwork and get Ray started on surveillance. Then you and I are taking a road trip to Nevada. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Direction. The fog that had been sitting on my chest since the VA hospital started to lift. This was a mission now. Clear objectives and measurable outcomes. Find evidence, prove fraud, reclaim what was stolen. 2 days later, Wade called and told me to meet him at his office at 6 in the morning. We were driving to Reno, 7 hours each way, and he wanted to get there before Donna Price started her shift at the Silver Star Casino where she worked as a cocktail waitress. The drive was long and mostly silent. Wade behind the wheel of his Ford F-150, me in the passenger seat watching Idaho turn into Nevada. Desert country, sage and alkali flats, mountains in the distance that looked like they'd been carved from iron. We stopped once for gas and terrible coffee, then kept going. Wade broke the silence around hour 5. Tell me about your father. What do you want to know? What kind of man was he? The kind who disinherited his youngest son. I thought about that. Tried to remember Dad clearly, not the idealized version I'd been carrying for 15 years. He was hard, not mean but hard. Expected you to work, to earn everything. He didn't believe in handouts. Military? Army? Korea? Did his tour and came home, never talked about it much. I watched the desert roll past. But he was fair. He treated me and Tyler the same when we were kids. Same chores, same discipline, same expectations. I can't see him changing his will to cut me out unless something major happened. Like what? I don't know. That's what bothers me. I was 13 when he died. What could a 13-year-old do that's so bad you write him out of your legacy? Wade nodded slowly. Or maybe the will's exactly what we think it is. A forgery. Your brother wanted the ranch, knew you were too young to fight back, created the document he needed. Then why wait 15 years? Because probate doesn't have a time limit in Oregon if there's no will. Could be Tyler was waiting for you to forget, to move on, to be far enough removed that you wouldn't question it. Or could be he needed time to create a convincing forgery. Either way, we're going to find out. We reached Reno just after noon, the city sprawling in a valley surrounded by brown hills. The Silver Star Casino was on the eastern edge of town, smaller than the big-name places downtown, catering to locals more than tourists. We parked and Wade checked his phone. Donna's shift starts at 2. We've got time to eat and plan our approach. We found a diner across the street, sat in a booth with a view of the casino entrance. Wade ordered a burger. I got coffee. I didn't drink. My stomach was too tight to eat. Here's how this goes, Wade said. We approach her calm, professional. Explain who you are, what we're investigating. We're not accusing her of anything yet. We're just asking questions. What if she refuses to talk? Then we subpoena her. But that takes time and she'll lawyer up. Better if we get her to talk voluntarily. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Donna Price's driver's license, pulled from public records. 58 years old, gray blonde hair, tired eyes. Ray got this for us along with her employment records. She's worked at the Silver Star for 6 years. Before that, she was in Portland. Financial records show she's barely making ends meet, probably why she signed that will in the first place. Tyler said he paid her $5,000. If he did, she spent it fast. Her bank account never had more than $2,000 in it, according to what Ray found. At 1:45, we crossed the street and entered the casino. Slot machines chiming, cigarette smoke thick enough to taste. Dealers at blackjack tables calling cards. Donna Price appeared at 1:50, coming through an employee entrance wearing a black cocktail uniform that had seen better days. She was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'4", carrying a tray of empty glasses toward the bar. Wade intercepted her. Miss Price? Donna Price? She looked up, startled. Who's asking? My name is Wade Cooper. I'm an attorney from Idaho. This is Connor Blake. We'd like to talk to you about a will you witnessed in 2009. Her face went pale. I already talked to the probate court. I don't have anything else to say. Please, I said, keeping my voice calm. 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. She looked at me, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. You're Jack's other son, the young one. Yes, ma'am. I don't want trouble. I just signed a paper, that's all. Wade held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. No trouble. We just want to understand what happened. When's your break? She glanced toward the bar where a manager was watching. 20 minutes. There's a coffee shop around the corner. I'll meet you there. We waited at the coffee shop, a narrow place wedged between a pawn shop and a cell phone store. Donna showed up exactly 20 minutes later, still in her uniform, a cigarette between her fingers that she stubbed out before entering. She sat across from us in the booth, and Wade ordered her a coffee she didn't touch. I'm not going to court, she said immediately. Whatever you're planning, I can't testify. I can't afford to lose this job. We're not asking you to testify, Wade said. Not yet. We just want the truth. The truth is I signed a will. That's it. I leaned forward. Did you see my father sign it? Silence. She looked at her hands. Ms. Price, I said gently, I'm not angry at you. I just need to know. Did you actually watch Jack Blake sign that will? No. Her voice was barely a whisper. Your brother brought me papers already signed. Said his dad had done it earlier that day, but needed witnesses. Paid me $5,000 cash. I needed the money. My daughter was sick, medical bills piling up. I didn't think it would hurt anyone. Wade was writing everything down on a legal pad. Did Tyler tell you what was in the will? Said it was standard stuff, dividing the ranch between the two boys. Said you were too young to be on the paperwork yet, but you'd get your share when you turned 18. She finally looked at me. I'm sorry, I didn't know he was lying. When exactly did this happen? Wade asked. Maybe 2 years ago. He found me in Portland, where I was living then. Said he'd tracked me down through old ranch records, needed my signature for legal purposes. 2 years ago. The will was supposedly signed in 2009, but Tyler didn't get Donna's signature until 2022, years after Ramon Cortez died. The timeline was falling apart. Did you ever meet Ramon Cortez? I asked. Who? The other witness listed on the will. She shook her head. Never heard that name. Tyler said there was another witness, but I never saw him. Wade closed his legal pad. Ms. Price, what you just told us is evidence of fraud. Tyler forged a will and paid you to provide a false witness statement. That's a crime. I know. She was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I know it was wrong, but my daughter needed surgery and I was desperate, and he made it sound so harmless. We can protect you, Wade said. If you're willing to testify, we can arrange immunity from prosecution, but we need your cooperation. If I testify, what happens to me? Nothing if we structure this right. You were a victim of Tyler's fraud as much as Connor was. The court will see that. She wiped her eyes with a napkin from the dispenser on the table. I need to think about it. I have grandkids now. If their grandmother goes to jail, you won't, Wade assured her. I promise you that. But we need your help to stop Tyler from getting away with this. Donna stood. I have to get back to work. Give me a number where I can reach you. Wade handed her his business card. She took it and left without looking back. We sat in the booth for another 10 minutes, Wade writing notes, me processing what we just learned. The will was definitely forged. Tyler had paid a woman thousands of dollars to lie about witnessing it. And if Donna never met Ramon, that meant Tyler had forged Ramon's signature too, probably after Ramon died and couldn't dispute it. We've got him, I said. We've got evidence of fraud, but we need Donna to testify or it is just our word against Tyler's. Wade put away his legal pad. Let's give her a few days to think about it. Meanwhile, we have work to do back home. The drive back to Idaho felt faster, hope replacing the heavy dread I'd been carrying. We stopped for dinner at a truck stop somewhere in the high desert, ate in companionable silence. Two veterans who understood that some victories take time. Wade's phone rang as we were getting back in the truck. He listened for a moment, said thanks, and hung up. That was Ray. He's got photos. Of what? Your brother meeting with some interesting people at the ranch. We drove straight to Wade's office, even though it was past 10 at night. Ray Hutchins was waiting for us, a man in his early 60s, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent a career in bad places doing dangerous work. He had a laptop set up on Wade's desk, photos queued and ready. Connor Blake, he said, shaking my hand. Wade's told me about your situation. I think you're going to want to see this. He clicked to the first photo. Tyler standing next to a black Suburban in front of the ranch house, talking to three men I didn't recognize. Hispanic, well-dressed, one of them wearing enough gold jewelry to fund a small country. That's Javier Reyes, Ray said. Enforcer for Los Hermanos Cartel, mid-level operation out of Sinaloa. The other two are his lieutenants. This was taken 3 days ago. Next photo. Tyler and Javier walking toward the barn, their body language tense. Next photo. Javier pointing at Tyler, clearly angry about something. I had a directional mic, Ray explained. Caught about 30% of the conversation. Javier's demanding payment on a debt, $400,000. Tyler's promising he owns the land clear now and can refinance to get the money. $400,000, the exact amount of the mortgage Dad had on the ranch when he died. Tyler's borrowed from the cartel, Wade said. Worse, Ray continued, he's been using the ranch as a distribution point for moving product north into Washington and Idaho. The cattle trucks are perfect cover. Load up a shipment in the hidden canyon, drive it out mixed in with legitimate cattle transport. DEA's been looking for this pipeline for 2 years. More photos. Tyler loading plastic-wrapped packages into a cattle trailer. A truck leaving the ranch with a Los Hermanos logo barely visible on the driver's door. Javier and his men armed, walking the property like they owned it. Your brother's in deep, Ray said. If he doesn't pay them back, they'll kill him on him, and if he tries to run, they'll kill him. Only way out is that ranch, either selling it or refinancing to pull cash out. Which is why he needed to steal it from me, I said. He's not greedy, he's desperate. Wade studied the photos. This changes things. We can't just file a probate challenge and wait for court dates. The cartel's a wild card. They find out Tyler's ownership is being contested. They might decide to cut their losses violently. What are you suggesting? We move fast, file the petition tomorrow with everything we have. Donna's statement, the timeline problems, evidence of forgery. We ask for an emergency hearing based on fraud. If we can get the will thrown out before the cartel realizes what's happening, we cut Tyler's legs out from under him. And then what, I asked? The cartel just walks away? The cartel becomes a law enforcement problem, not ours. We notify the DEA anonymously once the probate case is settled. Let the feds handle the drug trafficking. Ray shook his head. You notify the DEA and the cartel's going to assume Tyler talked. They'll kill him. He's a grown man who made grown man choices, Wade said coldly. He involved himself with a drug cartel. That's on him. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark street below. Tyler was my brother. We'd shared a childhood, shared a father, shared blood. Everything he'd done to me was unforgivable, but did that mean I should sign his death warrant? Connor, Wade said it behind me. I know this is hard, but your brother threatened you. He stole your inheritance. And if Ray's right, there's a good chance he killed your father to cover up his drug operation. That stopped me. What? Ray pulled up another file on his laptop. I did some digging into Jack Blake's death. Sheriff's report said hunting accident, case closed. But I talked to the medical examiner who did the autopsy. He's retired now, living in Ontario. Told me something interesting. The wound angle was wrong. Wrong how? Your father was shot in the chest from an elevated position. The sheriff's report said he tripped and the rifle discharged. But if he fell forward, the bullet would have entered from a downward angle. This was horizontal to slightly upward, like someone shot him from higher ground while he was standing. The room tilted. Tyler shot him. Can't prove it, Ray said. But the evidence doesn't support the official story, and the timing's suspicious. Your father died 2 weeks after that will was supposedly signed. Could be coincidence. Or it could be murder, Wade finished. I felt something cold settle in my chest, spreading outward like ice water through my veins. My brother, the person who'd promised to protect me, had possibly murdered our father for a ranch he planned to use as a drug distribution hub. I want him destroyed, I said quietly. I don't care about the cartel. I don't care if it's dangerous. I want Tyler to lose everything. Wade nodded. Then that's what we'll do. The next morning, Wade filed a petition with Harney County Probate Court. Petition to set aside will and grant of probate based on fraud, forgery, and undue influence. 20 pages of legal arguments, supported by Donna Price's written statement, analysis of the timeline, expert opinion on the signature forgery, and Ray's investigation into the suspicious circumstances of Jack Blake's death. We requested an emergency hearing, arguing that Tyler was actively dissipating estate assets through criminal activity and the property was at risk. Judge Martin Pierce, the same judge who'd approved the original probate, scheduled a hearing for 3 weeks out. It wasn't as fast as we wanted, but it was faster than the normal 6-month wait. Tyler's response came 48 hours later, delivered by courier to Wade's office. Notice of appearance by Victor Strand, attorney at law, Portland, Oregon, on behalf of Tyler Blake, followed immediately by a motion to dismiss and a counterclaim. Wade read the counterclaim and laughed, though there wasn't much humor in it. Listen to this. Tyler's claiming you're a mentally unstable veteran using false allegations to extort money from him. He's asking the court to sanction us for filing a frivolous lawsuit and demanding we pay his attorney fees. Can he do that? He can try. Won't work, but he can try. Wade tossed the papers on his desk. Victor Strand's a shark, one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Oregon. Expensive, too. Makes me wonder where Tyler's getting the money to pay him. The cartel? Probably. Which means they have a vested interest in this case now. They need Tyler to keep the ranch so they get paid back. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. A photo, no message. I opened it and my blood went cold. It was a picture of Margaret Hayes walking to her car at Riverside, taken from a distance, clearly surveillance. Someone was watching her. Wade. He looked at the photo and his expression went hard. Ray, I need security on Margaret Hayes in Caldwell, right now. Ray was already on his phone making calls. Another text came through. This one had a message. Stop the lawsuit or people get hurt. They're threatening Margaret, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Wade took my phone, forwarded the messages to his own device. This is evidence of witness intimidation. We can use this. I don't care about evidence. They threaten Margaret, and we're going to protect her. Ray's got contacts, former military who do security work. We'll have someone on her 24/7. Wade looked at me. But Connor, you need to understand something. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The cartel doesn't make empty threats. If we keep pushing, they'll push back harder. Then let them push. I'm not stopping. Good. Because I already filed a motion to compel Donna Price's testimony and requested the court open an investigation into your father's death. We're all in now. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Ray installed security cameras at Margaret's house, hired 2 former Marines to rotate shifts watching her. Wade filed motion after motion, building our case, anticipating every argument Victor Strand would make. I spent the time going through every photo I had of my father, every letter he'd written during my childhood, looking for some sign of what his true intentions had been. In one box, I found something I'd forgotten existed, a birthday card from my 10th birthday, Dad's handwriting inside. Connor, you're growing up strong and smart. One day this ranch will need you as much as I need you now. Never forget, you're a Blake. That means something. Love, Dad. One day this ranch will need you. Not Tyler, not someone else. You. I took a photo of the card and sent it to Wade. He called me 30 seconds later. This is good. This shows his intent was to include you in the succession. Bring the original to the hearing. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in Burns. Wade and I drove out the day before, stayed in a motel on the edge of town. I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about Tyler, about Dad, about everything that had been stolen. At 6 in the morning, there was a knock on my motel room door. I opened it to find Ray standing there, looking grim. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Donna Price is missing. She didn't show up for her shift last night. Her apartment's empty. Looks like she left in a hurry. No note, no forwarding address. My stomach dropped. The cartel got to her. Or Tyler did. Either way, she's gone, and we can't compel testimony from someone we can't find. Wade appeared from his room, already dressed. How hard did you look? Called in every favor I have. She's in the wind. Without Donna's testimony, half our case disappeared. We still had the timeline problems, the suspicious death investigation, but without a witness admitting Tyler paid her to sign a false document, it was circumstantial. Wade was quiet for a long moment, thinking. We proceed without her. We focus on the forensic evidence, the signature analysis, the financial motive. And we put Tyler on the stand if we can, make him explain the timeline, the witnesses, the drug operation. Will the judge allow questions about the drugs? If we can tie it to motive for forging the will, yes. The courthouse was an old stone building in downtown Burns, 3 stories of civic authority built in the 1920s. We arrived early, went through security, climbed to the second-floor courtroom where probate matters were heard. Tyler was already there with Victor Strand, sitting at the defendant's table. Tyler wore a suit I'd never seen before, expensive and well-fitted. He looked confident, relaxed even. Strand was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with styled hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Judge Martin Pierce took the bench at exactly 9 o'clock. 67 years old, gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. He'd been a judge in Harney County for 20 years and had a reputation for no-nonsense rulings. Gentlemen, he said, we're here on a petition to set aside the probate of Jack Blake's will based on allegations of fraud. Mr. Cooper, you filed this petition. You may proceed. Wade stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and began to dismantle my brother's lies piece by piece. Margaret arrived at the motel that evening, insisting on being there despite the threats. She'd brought a casserole she'd made that morning, convinced that no legal battle could be fought on an empty stomach. We ate in Wade's room while Ray went over the next day's security plan. "Tyler's going to be desperate," Ray said, spreading photos across the bed. "The cartel's putting pressure on him. I've got 3 more photos of Javier at the ranch this week, each time looking angrier. If Tyler loses in court, he loses the ranch. And if he loses the ranch, he's a dead man." "Not our problem," Wade said. But even he didn't sound convinced. Margaret set down her plate. "Connor, I need to ask you something. If you win, what are you going to do with the ranch?" "I've been avoiding that question." "I don't know. Run it, I guess. Learn ranching, honor Dad's legacy." "But is that what you want? Or is it just what you think you're supposed to want?" The truth was, I didn't know. I'd spent 15 years focused on getting the ranch back, but I'd never thought beyond that moment of victory. What did a combat veteran with PTSD know about running 1,800 acres of high desert rangeland? My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. A photo of the motel from across the street. Then a message. "Tomorrow you lose. Walk away now or face consequences." I showed it to Ray. He was out the door immediately, checking the parking lot, scanning the street. He came back 10 minutes later, frustrated. "Whoever it was is gone. Professional surveillance. They knew not to linger." Wade took my phone, forwarded the messages to his own device. "More evidence of intimidation. We'll file it with the court tomorrow." But we all knew filing evidence didn't stop bullets. Sleep was impossible that night. I lay in the motel bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Dad, about Tyler, about the ranch that had destroyed my family. Around 2 in the morning, I gave up and went outside. Ray was in his vehicle, keeping watch. He nodded when he saw me, but didn't ask questions. I called my old platoon sergeant, a man named Martinez, who'd pulled me through my worst days in Afghanistan. It was late, but he answered on the second ring, voice alert like he'd been expecting my call. "Blake, been wondering when I'd hear from you." "How'd you know?" "Margaret called last week. Said you were in trouble. Figured you'd reach out eventually." I heard him moving around, probably stepping outside so he wouldn't wake his wife. "Talk to me." I told him everything. The will, the forgery, Tyler's involvement with the cartel, the threats, the hearing scheduled for tomorrow. Martinez listened without interrupting, the way he used to during debriefs. "You asking for permission or advice?" he said when I finished. "I don't know, both maybe. Permission you don't need. You're doing the right thing fighting for what's yours. Advice? Watch your 6. Cartels don't make empty threats and desperate men do stupid things. Your brother's both desperate and stupid. Bad combination." "I know. And Blake, when this is over, you need to figure out what you're fighting for. Is it the ranch or is it something else? Because if it's just about beating Tyler, that's revenge, and revenge eats you alive." He was right. I knew he was right. But I didn't have answers yet. The courthouse opened at 8. We arrived at 7:30, Wade carrying 3 boxes of evidence, me carrying the weight of 15 years of waiting. The courtroom was already filling up. Local ranchers who'd known my father, curious townspeople drawn by rumors of cartel involvement, reporters from the Burns Times-Herald. Tyler sat at the defense table with Victor Strand, both of them looking confident despite yesterday's setbacks. Tyler had on a different suit, this one even more expensive, sending a message. "I'm successful. I'm legitimate. I'm the rightful owner." Judge Pierce took this bench exactly at 8. He'd reviewed the evidence overnight, including the surveillance photos Ray had provided. His expression gave nothing away. "Gentlemen," he began, "I've considered the material submitted yesterday regarding alleged criminal activity. While concerning, I'm ruling it admissible only as it pertains to motive for the alleged forgery. This is a probate matter, not a criminal trial. The question before this court is simple. Did Jack Blake write and sign the will dated October 15th, 2009, or is it a forgery?" Wade stood. "Your Honor, we believe the evidence clearly shows forgery. The forensic analysis, the timeline inconsistencies, the witness who admits being paid to sign without seeing the testator, all point to fraud. And we have equal evidence supporting authenticity," Strand countered. "Our expert analysis, the properly witnessed and notarized document, the fact that Jack Blake had every right to dispose of his property as he saw fit." Judge Pierce nodded. "Then we'll proceed with a full evidentiary hearing. I'm scheduling 5 days starting next month. Both parties will have time to depose witnesses, complete discovery, and prepare their cases. In the meantime, the status quo remains. Tyler Blake retains possession of the property under the current probate order. My stomach dropped. Another month of waiting. Another month of Tyler running the ranch, paying off the cartel, potentially destroying evidence. Wade was on his feet. Your Honor, we request the court freeze all assets and prevent any further encumbrance or sale of the property pending the hearing. Granted, Mr. Blake, you are hereby ordered not to sell, mortgage, or otherwise encumber the ranch property until this matter is resolved. You may continue operations, but any profits must be placed in escrow. It was something, but not enough. Tyler could still destroy the place, run it into the ground, make it worthless before I ever had a chance to claim it. The hearing ended with both sides filing additional motions, setting deadlines for discovery, arguing over expert witnesses. Legal warfare, slow and grinding, nothing like the quick, decisive battles I'd trained for in the Marines. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to corner us, but Wade pushed through, saying no comment to every question. We made it to his truck and got out of town before the news vans could follow. 1 month, I said. 1 month, Wade confirmed. Use the time wisely. We need to find more evidence. Track down anyone else who knew your father, anyone who can testify about his real intentions. What about Donna Price? Ray's still looking, but if the cartel has her, she's either dead or too scared to surface. We drove back to Boise in heavy silence. Margaret rode with us, her hand occasionally reaching over to squeeze my shoulder, reminding me I wasn't alone. That night, I got a call from Victor Strand. Mr. Blake, this is Victor Strand. I'm calling off the record, attorney to party. My client would like to make you an offer. I'm listening. Tyler is willing to settle. He'll deed you 50% of the ranch, split the operation 50-50, and pay you $100,000 in cash within 60 days. In exchange, you drop the petition and accept the partnership arrangement. It was more than the original $50,000, but still far less than my half should be worth. And working with Tyler? After everything? Tell your client to go to hell. Mr. Blake, please consider. A trial could take years if it goes to appeals. Your brother could tie this up in court until the property isn't worth fighting for. This offer gives you substantial value now, with certainty versus the risk of litigation. The answer is no. I'll see you in court next month. I hung up before he could respond. Wade called 5 minutes later. Strand contacted you? Settlement offer. I refused. Good. It means they're worried. They wouldn't be offering anything if they thought they could win. I heard papers rustling on his end. I've got Ray digging deeper into Tyler's finances. We need to prove he had motive beyond just wanting the ranch. If we can show he needed it specifically to pay the cartel debt, that strengthens our case. What can I do? Go through your father's belongings, anything you still have, letters, photos, documents. Look for evidence of his real wishes for the estate. And Connor, be careful. Strand's settlement offer might have been genuine, but it also might have been a test to see if you'd back down. When you said no, you painted a bigger target on your back. Margaret was staying at my apartment that week, unwilling to leave me alone. She made coffee in the morning and dinner at night, filled the empty spaces with conversation and comfort. On the third day, she sat me down at my kitchen table with a box I hadn't opened in a decade. Your father's effects, she said, from Riverside Storage. I brought them when I came. Inside were fragments of a life. Dad's dog tags from Korea. His wedding ring, simple gold band, photos of Mom and Dad young and happy, a pocket knife he'd carried every day, and at the bottom, wrapped in an oilcloth, a bundle of letters tied with string. I opened the first one. My handwriting, age 8 or 9, crayon on lined paper. Dear Dad, I miss you. When are you coming to get me? Love, Connor. He kept every letter I'd sent from Riverside, dozens of them, spanning 5 years. Some asking when he'd visit, some telling him about school, some begging to come home. And tucked between 2 of my letters was one in Dad's handwriting, addressed to me, but never sent. The date was October 10th, 2009, 5 days before the will was supposedly signed, 20 days before he died. My hands shook as I opened it. Connor, by the time you're old enough to read this, I'll probably be gone. The doctors say my heart's giving out. Maybe a year or 2 left. I'm writing this to explain things you'll need to know. The ranch goes to you, all of it. I've made arrangements through a lawyer in Boise, a real will, not the nonsense I heard Tyler talking about making. You're 13 now, too young to manage land, But when you're 25, the property transfers to your name completely. Until then, it's held in trust, managed by professionals. Tyler can't know this. He's changed since the war, got darkness in him that wasn't there before. He talks about the ranch like it's owed to him for being the eldest, for serving. But land isn't about age or service, it's about stewardship. You have your mother's heart, Connor. You'll protect this place, not exploit it. If something happens to me before you're 25, don't trust Tyler to do right by you. He's my son, and I love him, but love doesn't make you blind. He'll try to take what's yours. Fight him. You're stronger than you know. The ranch is in your blood. Come home when you're ready. It'll be waiting. I love you, son. Always have, always will. Dad, the letter fell from my hands. Margaret picked it up, read it, her eyes widening. Connor, this changes everything. There was another will, a real one, made through a legitimate lawyer. In Boise. He said Boise. We called Wade immediately. He had us read the letter 3 times, asked detailed questions about the handwriting, the paper, the date. We need to find that lawyer, he said. If there's another will, filed properly, that supersedes anything Tyler produced. What was your father's full name? Jack Robert Blake. Give me 2 hours. Wade called back in 90 minutes. Found him. Attorney named Harold Chambers. Practices out of Boise. Specializes in estate planning. I called his office. He remembers your father. Says he did draft a will in 2009, but there were complications. What kind of complications? Jack Blake never came back to sign it. Chambers says your father had an initial consultation in September 2009, laid out his wishes, and Chambers drafted the document. They scheduled a signing for October 20th. Jack Blake died on October 30th. He never made the appointment. So close. Dad had tried to protect me, tried to do it the right way, but died before he could finish. But that proves intent, Wade said, excitement creeping into his voice. Chambers can testify that Jack Blake's stated wishes were to leave everything to you, not Tyler. That contradicts Tyler's version completely. Will that be enough? Combined with everything else? The forensic evidence, Donna's statement, the timeline problems, the cartel motive? Yeah, it might be enough. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Wade deposed Chambers, got his testimony on record. Ray found 2 former ranch hands who'd worked for Dad and remembered him talking about Connor being the future of the Blake Ranch. We compiled financial records showing Tyler's debts, his desperate need for cash. But Tyler wasn't sitting idle either. He produced witnesses saying Dad often complained about Connor being too soft, too young, not rancher material. He had an economist testify the ranch was worth less than we claimed. He painted a picture of a father making a hard but necessary choice to keep his legacy intact. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep again. This time I drove out to the ranch, parking on the county road where I could see the house in the distance. Lights were on. Tyler was up too, probably as nervous as I was. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Connor Blake? A voice I didn't recognize, accented, dangerous. Who is this? Someone with a message. Drop the lawsuit. Tomorrow, tell the judge you've reconsidered. Accept your brother's settlement offer. Walk away. Or what? Or people you care about get hurt. Starting with the woman at your apartment. My blood went cold. If you touch Margaret, then cooperate. This is business, nothing personal. Tyler owes money. He pays with the ranch or he pays with blood. You're in the way. Move. The line went dead. I called Wade immediately, then Ray, then the Boise police. By the time I got back to my apartment, there were 3 patrol cars outside and Ray's security team sweeping the building. Margaret was safe, shaken, but safe, in the back of a police cruiser. They were in the parking lot, she said when I reached her. Black SUV watching the building. When the police showed up, they left. The cartel had made their move. No more subtle threats. Now it was explicit. Drop the case or people die. Wade pulled me aside. You can still withdraw the petition, walk away, take Tyler's settlement offer, live to fight another day. I looked at Margaret, sitting in that police car because she'd chosen to help me. Looked at Wade, who'd put his reputation on the line. Looked at Ray, who'd risked surveillance on dangerous men. No, I said, we're seeing this through, whatever it takes. Then we go federal. I'm calling the U.S. attorney first thing in the morning. This is witness intimidation, organized crime, interstate trafficking. Let the feds handle the cartel while we handle the probate case. Will that protect Margaret? Ray's team will. And once federal agents are involved, the cartel usually backs off. They don't need that kind of heat. The hearing started at 9 the next morning. Federal agents were in the courtroom, sitting in the back row, a message to everyone watching. We know what's happening. We're watching. Tyler saw them and his face went gray. Strand leaned over, whispering urgently. Whatever protection Tyler thought he had just evaporated. Judge Pierce called the court to order. Gentlemen, before we begin, I want to address the elephant in the room. I'm aware of threats made against parties in this case. I've been in contact with federal authorities. This courtroom will be a place of law and order. Anyone who threatens that will face severe consequences. He looked directly at Tyler when he said it. Now then, Mr. Cooper, call your first witness. Wade stood, buttoned his jacket, and said the words that would start the real war. Your Honor, the petitioner calls Harold Chambers to testify about Jack Blake's true final wishes. This was it, the moment we'd been building toward. The truth finally would come out. And somewhere in that courtroom, sitting next to his expensive lawyer, my brother was about to lose everything he'd stolen. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But I also felt something else, something I hadn't felt in 15 years. I felt like I was finally coming home. Harold Chambers took the witness stand with the careful movements of a man who'd spent 40 years practicing law and understood the weight of testimony. He was 72 years old, gray hair neatly trimmed, wearing a suit that had probably cost more than my monthly disability check. His hand rested on the Bible as he swore to tell the truth, and something about the steadiness in his voice made me believe he would. Wade approached the witness box, legal pad in hand, his posture relaxed but focused. This was the moment we'd been building toward. Everything hinged on what Chambers remembered about my father's intentions. Mr. Chambers, please state your occupation for the record. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Idaho, specializing in estate planning and probate law. I've practiced for 43 years. And did you have professional contact with Jack Blake in the fall of 2009? I did. Mr. Blake came to my office on September 18, 2009, requesting assistance with estate planning. Wade moved to enter Chambers' appointment book into evidence, showing the date and Jack Blake's name written in precise handwriting. Judge Pierce accepted it without objection from Strand. What did Mr. Blake tell you about his intentions for his estate? Chambers shifted in his seat, looking directly at me before answering. He was very clear. He wanted to ensure his younger son Connor would inherit the ranch in its entirety. He was concerned about his older son Tyler's judgment and wanted to protect the property from being mismanaged or sold. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Even the court reporter seemed to hold her breath. Did he give specific reasons for this decision? Yes, he said Tyler had developed problems during his military service, came back different. Jack mentioned Tyler had been talking about converting the ranch to other uses, possibly selling portions of it. Jack felt Connor had a better temperament for stewardship of the land. Victor Strand was on his feet immediately. Objection, Your Honor, this is pure hearsay. Mr. Chambers is recounting conversations with a deceased person who can't confirm or deny these statements. Wade countered smoothly. Your Honor, this falls under the state of mind exception. Mr. Chambers is testifying not to prove the truth of Jack Blake's concerns about Tyler, but to establish Jack Blake's intentions at the time he sought legal counsel. Judge Pierce nodded. Overruled. The witness may continue. Wade pressed forward. Did you draft a will based on this consultation? I did. A comprehensive estate plan, leaving the Blake Ranch and all associated assets to Connor Blake, to be held in trust until his 25th birthday. Tyler Blake was to receive a cash bequest of $100,000 in certain personal property, but no interest in the land. What happened to that will? Mr. Blake never signed it. We scheduled an appointment for October 20th, 2009 for the formal execution. He called my office on October 17th to confirm he'd be there. Then on November 2nd, I learned from a colleague that Jack Blake had died in a hunting accident. I attempted to contact the family but was told by someone I believe was Tyler that there was no need for probate assistance. Wade let that sink in. Tyler had intercepted the lawyer who could have exposed his fraud 15 years ago. Do you still have the unsigned will in your files? I do. It's standard practice to retain all drafted documents for at least 20 years. Wade entered the document into evidence. I watched Tyler's face as the clerk brought it to Judge Pierce. For the first time since the hearing started, my brother looked genuinely worried. Strand's cross-examination was aggressive but ineffective. He tried to suggest Chambers was misremembering, that Jack might have changed his mind between September and October, that an unsigned will meant nothing. But Chambers held firm, his testimony unshaken. When Chambers stepped down, Wade called me to the stand. The witness box felt smaller than it looked from the gallery, like sitting in the gun turret of a Humvee, waiting for contact. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore the oath, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. Wade's direct examination was gentle, almost conversational. He walked me through my childhood, my relationship with Dad, the promises Tyler made at the funeral. I told the court about the letters I'd sent from Riverside, about joining the Marines to make Dad proud, about believing my brother was handling the ranch until I could come home. When did you first learn about the will Tyler produced? At the lawyer's office in Burns, 6 weeks ago, Tyler and his attorney presented it as fact, said Dad had cut me out intentionally. How did that make you feel? Betrayed, not just by Tyler, but by the idea that my father hadn't wanted me. I spent 15 years thinking Dad had abandoned me to the system. Finding out Tyler had manufactured that abandonment, that Dad had actually tried to protect me, it was like losing him all over again. Wade showed me the birthday card I'd found, Dad's handwriting promising the ranch would need me someday. Then he showed me the unsent letter dated 5 days before the fraudulent will was supposedly signed. Your Honor, I'd like to read a portion of this letter for the record. Judge Pierce nodded permission. Wade's voice filled the courtroom. The ranch goes to you. All of it. Tyler can't know this. He's changed since the war, got darkness in him that wasn't there before. If something happens to me before you're 25, don't trust Tyler to do right by you. He'll try to take what's yours. Fight him. Several people in the gallery made soft sounds of sympathy. Margaret was crying quietly. Tyler stared at the table in front of him, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working. No further questions, Wade said. Victor Strand approached the witness box like a predator circling wounded prey. His smile was polite, but his eyes were calculating. Mr. Blake, you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, correct? Yes. And you've been hospitalized for it? Yes. How many times? Twice. Once in 2019, once 6 weeks ago. During these hospitalizations, did you experience hallucinations or delusions? Wade objected, but Judge Pierce allowed the question. I answered honestly. I had some episodes where I saw things that weren't there. Combat flashbacks. The medication helps. So your perception of reality has been, shall we say, unreliable at times. My PTSD doesn't affect my memory of my father or my childhood. But it does affect your judgment, doesn't it? Your medical records show you've struggled with paranoia, with feeling persecuted. Objection, Wade said sharply. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Sustained, Mr. Strand asked questions. Strand shifted tactics. Mr. Blake, when was the last time you visited the ranch before filing this lawsuit? I was 13 when I left. 15 years. You didn't visit once in 15 years, yet you claim to care deeply about this property? I was serving in Afghanistan, and I trusted my brother. Right. Trust. But you didn't trust him enough to call regularly, did you? Your phone records show you stopped answering Tyler's calls 3 years ago. Because every conversation was a lie. He kept saying he was working on the probate, kept promising we'd run the ranch together. Or perhaps you simply lost interest in the ranch and only became interested again when you learned it was valuable. That's not true. No? Then explain why you're fighting so hard for property you haven't seen or worked on in 15 years while your brother has invested his time, money, and labor into keeping it operational. I took a breath, keeping my voice level. Because it's not about the property. It's about honoring my father's wishes. And my father wanted me to have it. Your father, who you barely remember, who died when you were 13, who by your own admission, you only have fragmented memories of. I remember him well enough to know he was a man of his word, and he wouldn't have cut me out of his will without good reason. Since there was no good reason, the will must be fake. That's circular logic, Mr. Blake. That's the truth. Strand paced in front of the witness box. Let me ask you something. Do you know anything about running a cattle ranch? Not yet, but I can learn. Have you ever worked cattle, built fence, managed grazing rotation, handled equipment maintenance? No. So if you were to win this case and take possession of an 1,800-acre working ranch, you'd have no idea what to do with it. I'd hire people who do, same as any business. Or you'd sell it, pocket the money. That's really what this is about, isn't it? Not honor or legacy, just money. Wade objected again, argumentative and assumes facts not in evidence. Sustained. But the damage was done. Strand had painted me as an opportunist, a broken veteran with memory problems trying to steal a ranch I couldn't manage from a brother who'd worked to preserve it. When I stepped down, I felt hollowed out. Wade squeezed my shoulder as I passed, but his expression was tight. We'd scored points with Chambers' testimony in the letters, but Strand had bloodied us with the cross-examination. The morning session ended with Judge Pierce calling a recess for lunch. We regrouped in a conference room the court provided, ordering sandwiches nobody ate. "He's good," Wade admitted. "Better than I expected, but we've still got strong evidence. The forensics, the witness testimony about the forgery." "What about Donna?" I asked. Ray shook his head. "Still missing. I've got contacts looking, but it's like she vanished into thin air. Either she's hiding or someone's hiding her." Margaret set down her untouched coffee. "What if she's dead?" "Then we proceed with what we have," Wade said grimly. "The affidavit she gave us before disappearing. The forensic evidence, Maria Cortez's testimony about Ramon. It's enough." But his tone suggested it might not be. The afternoon session started with Strand calling his first witness, a surprise that made Wade curse under his breath. Dr. Patricia Vance, a psychologist from Boise, took the stand. She was in her 60s, professional demeanor, the kind of expert witness who testified in hundreds of cases. Strand established her credentials, then moved to the heart of his examination. "Dr. Vance, did you have professional contact with Jack Blake?" "I did. He came to see me in September of 2009, referred by his primary care physician for treatment of depression and anxiety." My stomach dropped. Dad had been seeing a therapist? What did Mr. Blake discuss during his sessions? He was struggling with end-of-life issues. He'd been diagnosed with a heart condition and given a limited prognosis. He was working through complicated feelings about his sons and his legacy. Did he specifically discuss his estate plans? Yes. He expressed guilt about Connor, about not being able to raise him after his wife died. But he also felt Connor was too young, too emotionally fragile to handle the responsibility of the ranch. He worried Connor lacked the toughness necessary for ranching. The words hit like physical blows. Wade was scribbling notes furiously, preparing his cross-examination. Did Jack Blake indicate his intentions for the property? He said Tyler was the practical choice. Tyler understood ranching, had the temperament for it. He loved Connor but felt giving him the ranch would be setting him up for failure. When were these sessions? September through early October 2009. Our last session was October 8th. After Chambers had already drafted the will leaving everything to me, which meant Dad had talked to both his lawyer and his therapist, telling each of them opposite things. Wade's cross-examination focused on the timeline and the inconsistency. "Dr. Vance, isn't it possible Jack Blake was working through conflicting feelings? That he ultimately decided differently than what he expressed in therapy?" "It's possible. But in my clinical experience, when someone repeatedly expresses the same concern across multiple sessions, it reflects their genuine belief." "Did Jack Blake ever tell you he decided definitively to exclude Connor from his will?" "Not in those exact words, no." "Did he ever tell you he'd actually executed such a will?" "No." "So everything you're testifying to is his thought process, not his final decision?" "Correct. It was something, but the damage was real." Strand had created reasonable doubt about Dad's intentions, made it plausible that the fraudulent will actually reflected his wishes. Wade called Maria Cortez next, Ramon's widow. She was nervous, her English heavily accented, but clear. Wade walked her through her husband's background, his 20 years working for Jack Blake, his loyalty to the family. "Mrs. Cortez, could your husband read and write in English?" "A little. He signed his name, but not good. Mostly he used X like when we marry in Mexico." Wade showed her the will, the signature that supposedly belonged to Ramon. "Is this your husband's signature?" She studied it carefully, shook her head. "No, Ramon never write like this. This is too nice, too perfect. Ramon's handshake when he write. This is someone else." "Do you remember Tyler Blake coming to see you about 2 years ago?" "Yes. He say he needs signature for ranch paperwork. I was sad missing Ramon. I signed where he showed me. I don't know it was for will." "Did you read what you were signing?" "No, I trust Tyler. He was Jack's son. I think it was just formality." Strand's cross was brutal. He suggested her memory was unreliable, that her grief had confused her, that she might be lying to help Connor out of sympathy for a fellow orphan. Maria held up as well as she could, but by the end she was crying, apologizing in broken English for not being smarter, for not protecting Connor from Tyler's lies. The second day of the hearing started with the expert testimony battle. Wade's forensic document examiner, Dr. Helen Ross, presented her analysis of the will. She was thorough, using enlarged photographs and chemical test results to show the ink composition, the paper dating, the signature characteristics. The ink contains polymer compounds that weren't commercially available until 2015, she explained. The paper has a digital watermark indicating manufacture in 2020. And most tellingly, Jack Blake's signature shows hesitation marks consistent with tracing rather than natural signing. Someone copied an authentic signature, probably from a check or legal document, and transferred it to this will. Strand's expert, Dr. James Morgan, contradicted every point. He argued the ink testing was unreliable. The paper could have been from old stock. The signature analysis subjective. The two PhDs disagreed on methodology, interpretation, statistical significance. To anyone without a chemistry degree, it sounded like a wash. Judge Pierce called both experts to approach the bench, asked technical questions that showed he'd done his homework. After 20 minutes of discussion, he sent them back to their seats. "I'll take the forensic evidence under advisement," he said. "Mr. Cooper, any other witnesses?" "Your Honor, we'd like to call Donna Price via video conference. We've located her and she's agreed to testify remotely due to safety concerns." Strand objected immediately. "The defendant has a right to face his accusers. Video testimony is inadequate for cross-examination." "Ms. Price has been threatened," Wade countered. "Disappeared from her home under suspicious circumstances. We have reason to believe cartel associates are hunting for her. Remote testimony is the only way to ensure her safety." Judge Pierce considered this. "Given the documented threats in this case and federal law enforcement involvement, I'll allow video testimony. But Mr. Strand, you'll have full opportunity for cross-examination." The bailiff set up a screen at the front of the courtroom. After several minutes of technical difficulties, Donna Price's face appeared. She was in a nondescript room, fluorescent lighting harsh on her features. She looked terrified. Wade took her through the same story she told us in Reno. Tyler approaching her 2 years ago, paying her $5,000, having her sign as a witness to a will she never saw Jack Blake execute. She admitted she'd needed the money desperately, that she hadn't asked enough questions. "Did you ever meet Ramon Cortez, the other witness listed on the will?" "No, never heard his name until the probate court contacted me." "Did Tyler Blake tell you what was in the will you were witnessing?" "He said it divided property between two brothers, that it was standard estate stuff. He made it sound harmless." Strand's cross-examination was withering. He attacked her credibility, her past financial problems, her criminal record that Wade hadn't known about, minor theft charge from 2018. He suggested Connor had paid her more than Tyler ever did, that this was a coordinated fraud. "Ms. Price, how much is Mr. Blake paying you to make these allegations?" "Nothing. I'm testifying because it's the truth." "Really? So you're risking perjury charges out of the goodness of your heart?" "I'm testifying because I was used. I helped Tyler Blake steal from his brother, and I want to make it right." Convenient timing, making it right just as Connor Blake files a lawsuit worth over $1 million. "I didn't know about the lawsuit until his lawyer found me." "But you knew you'd signed a false document 2 years ago and never came forward until now." Donna had no good answer for that. Strand had successfully painted her as either a liar or an opportunist, or both. When the video conference ended, Wade called his final witness, Carl Peterson, a former ranch hand who'd worked for Jack Blake from 2005 to 2009. Peterson was in his 70s, retired, living in Idaho Falls. "Mr. Peterson, did you know Jack Blake?" "Knew him well. Worked his ranch for 4 years." "Did Mr. Blake discuss his sons with you?" "All the time. He missed Connor something fierce. Used to say once Connor was old enough, they'd work the ranch together." "Did he mention Tyler?" "Sure, but Jack worried about Tyler. Said the war had changed him, made him hard in ways that weren't healthy. Jack loved both his boys, but he trusted Connor's heart more than Tyler's judgment." Strand's cross was brief. When was Peterson's last day at the ranch? 2009. Wasn't it possible Jack changed his mind after Peterson left? Possible, but unlikely. The hearing ended its second day with closing arguments scheduled for the following morning. Wade, Ray, Margaret, and I gathered in Wade's hotel room to prepare. The space felt too small, walls pressing in as we reviewed testimony and evidence, looking for weaknesses in our case that Strand might exploit. "It's close," Wade said, spreading his notes across the bed. Documents covered every surface, exhibits and depositions, and expert reports forming a paper trail of the last 3 weeks. "Closer than I'd like. We've got strong evidence of forgery, but Strand's created enough doubt about Jack's intentions that Pierce might rule against us." What are our chances? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Wade pulled off his glasses, rubbed his eyes with the heels of his hands. I'd seen that gesture before, in Afghanistan, when he was calculating odds on a legal decision that would determine whether a Marine faced court-martial or went home. 60-40 in our favor, maybe 55-45. Depends on how much weight Pierce gives to the forensic evidence versus the psychological testimony. That's not good enough, Ray said from his position by the window where he was monitoring the parking lot. We need better than a coin flip. It's what we have. Strand did damage with Dr. Vance. Made it plausible that Jack was genuinely conflicted, that the will might reflect legitimate second thoughts. Wade started pacing, a nervous energy I hadn't seen from him before. If I could put Tyler on the stand, force him to explain the timeline, the forged signatures, the cartel debt, we'd win this hands down, but he'll take the fifth on everything. Margaret had been quiet, sitting in the corner chair reviewing her own notes from the testimony. She looked up now, her expression thoughtful. What about the birthday card? Connor's 10th birthday, Jack writing that the ranch would need him someday. That was years before any of this. Before Tyler's military service. Before the alleged personality change. Before everything. Doesn't that show Jack's fundamental belief in Connor? We entered it into evidence, Wade confirmed. But Strand could argue people change their minds over a decade. A 10-year-old's birthday card doesn't override a will signed when the kid is 13 and the father is facing mortality. I stood, needing to move, to do something other than sit and wait for a verdict that would determine the rest of my life. The motel room was standard issue, cheap furniture and industrial carpet, but through the window I could see the lights of Burns spreading across the high desert valley. Somewhere out there was the ranch, my ranch, if Judge Pierce ruled in my favor, or Tyler's ranch if he didn't. There's something else bothering me, I said, still looking out the window. The way Tyler acted in court today. When Donna was testifying, when she was destroying his story, he didn't react. Just sat there calm as could be. Shock, maybe, Wade suggested. Or his lawyer told him to maintain composure for the judge. Or he knows something we don't. Ray had moved from the window, was checking the room's security, old habits from his DEA days. I've seen that look before. Guys who know they've got a backup plan, who aren't sweating because they've got an ace they haven't played yet. What kind of ace? Margaret asked. Don't know, but tomorrow we find out. Sleep was impossible. I lay in the dark hotel room listening to traffic on the highway, to the ice machine humming down the hall, to my own thoughts churning through worst-case scenarios. What if we lost? What if Judge Pierce decided the evidence wasn't clear enough? That reasonable doubt favored Tyler. I'd be back where I started, except now Tyler would know I'd tried to fight him and failed. Around 2 in the morning, I gave up on sleep, got dressed, and went outside. Ray appeared from the shadows near the office. Can't sleep either? Thinking too much, I admitted. About tomorrow? About everything. If we win, I get the ranch, but Tyler probably dies. If we lose, I get nothing, and he still probably dies because he can't pay the cartel either way. Ray lit a cigarette, offered me one. I took it, the smoke harsh in my lungs. You know what your problem is, Blake? You're trying to control outcomes you can't control. Tyler made his choices long before you filed that petition. His fate was sealed the moment he pulled that trigger 15 years ago. So I'm just supposed to be okay with my brother dying. You're supposed to be okay with his consequences being his responsibility, not yours. You're making choices about your own life. Do you honor your father's wishes or let a murderer steal his legacy? That's the only question that matters. We smoked in silence, watching the empty highway. Get some rest, Ray said finally. Tomorrow's going to be long. Ray's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. We've got movement at the ranch. My cameras picked up Javier and 3 vehicles arriving 20 minutes ago. They're meeting with Tyler. Day before the ruling, Margaret said quietly, they're putting pressure on him. Or planning what to do if he loses, Wade suggested. If the court rules in Connor's favor, Tyler's got nothing to pay them with. They might be discussing alternative payment arrangements. The implication hung heavy in the air. Alternative payment arrangements with a cartel usually involve blood. Ray pulled up the surveillance footage on his laptop. The ranch house was lit up, vehicles parked in front, men moving in and out. One figure that had to be Tyler stood talking with someone taller, broader. Even in the grainy night vision, I could see Tyler's defensive posture, the other man's aggressive stance. That's Javier, Ray confirmed, and he's not happy. At one point, Javier grabbed Tyler's shirt, pulled him close. Tyler didn't resist. They're going to kill him, Margaret said softly. Whether we win or lose, they're going to kill him. My phone rang, unknown number again. I answered on speaker, already knowing who it would be. Connor Blake, Javier's voice, heavily accented, dangerous. No more pretense at civility. Tomorrow the judge decides. If he rules for you, your brother dies. We have $400,000 invested in his success. We protect our investments. That's not my problem. It becomes your problem when we decide you're responsible. Walk away tomorrow. Tell the judge you've reconsidered. Or we make you watch your brother die before we kill you too. The line went dead. Wade was already calling the federal prosecutor, his voice urgent as he explained the latest threat. Ray was pulling up surveillance footage, trying to get vehicle plates, anything that could help law enforcement. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, the product of decades dealing with dangerous men. They're bluffing, Margaret said, but her voice wavered with uncertainty. They're not, Ray corrected, not looking up from his screen. Javier Reyes has 14 confirmed kills, probably twice that many unconfirmed. Executed a rival's entire family in Sinaloa in 2015, including children. This is not a man who makes empty threats. If Tyler loses tomorrow, he's a dead man. And they'll come after Connor for good measure, probably torture him first to make a point about interfering with a cartel business. I walked to the window, looking out at Burns in the darkness. Somewhere out there, my brother was meeting with the men who would kill him if I won. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction at that. Justice for what he'd done to Dad, for the lies and betrayal and stolen inheritance. But another part, the part that remembered us as kids, remembered Tyler teaching me to ride a bike and defending me from bullies at school, that part felt sick. What if I do walk away, I said quietly, knowing even as I spoke that I couldn't. No. Wade's voice was firm, the authority of a JAG officer who'd spent years making impossible calls. You walk away and Tyler wins. The fraud stands. Your father's real wishes get buried forever. And in 6 months, when Tyler still can't pay the cartel because the ranch isn't worth what they think it is, they kill him anyway. Walking away doesn't save him. It just means he wins before he dies. At least I wouldn't be responsible. You wouldn't be responsible either way. Wade came to stand beside me at the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. Tyler made his choices. He killed your father, forged a will, got involved with a drug cartel. His fate is sealed regardless of what happens in court tomorrow. The only question is whether you honor Jack Blake's legacy or let his killer steal it. Margaret came to stand on my other side, her hand finding mine in the darkness. Connor, you can't save Tyler. You could only ever save yourself. Don't sacrifice that to delay the inevitable. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing didn't make it easier. The weight of what was coming settled on my shoulders like the gear I'd carried on patrol in Afghanistan. Heavy and inescapable and necessary. We proceed with closing arguments, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Whatever happens after that, happens. Wade squeezed my shoulder once, brief and hard. That's the right call. Ray, what's our security posture for tomorrow? I've got 2 former Marines meeting us at the courthouse at 0700. Federal marshals will provide additional coverage inside. We go in convoy. Nobody travels alone. Everyone stays in line of sight at all times. Ray was in operational mode now, the professional emerging. After the ruling, regardless of outcome, we extract to Boise immediately. Don't stop. Don't delay. Just get out of Harney County as fast as possible. And if the cartel tries something, then we respond with appropriate force. I've got 3 licensed shooters, including myself. We're not looking for a fight, but we're prepared for one. Margaret looked troubled. This is America, not Afghanistan. We shouldn't need an armed convoy to attend a court hearing. Tell that to Javier Reyes, Ray said grimly. Cartels don't recognize borders or laws. They recognize power and profit. Right now, Connor's interfering with their profit. That makes him a target. The third day of the hearing felt different from the moment I walked into the courtroom. Federal agents were more visible, positioned at every exit. Sheriff's deputies that I recognized as actually being federal marshals in borrowed uniforms. The gallery was half empty, local spectators apparently warned to stay away. Tyler sat at the defense table looking like he hadn't slept. His expensive suit was rumpled, his hands shaking slightly as he drank from a water bottle. Strand leaned close, whispering, but Tyler barely seemed to hear him. Judge Pierce took the bench precisely at 9. Gentlemen, closing arguments. Mr. Cooper, you may proceed. Wade stood, walked to the center of the courtroom, and began to speak. His voice was measured, controlled, building a logical chain of evidence piece by piece. The forensic analysis showing the will was created recently, not in 2009. Donna Price's admission that she never saw Jack sign it. Maria Cortez's testimony about Ramon's signature being forged. Harold Chambers' documentation of Jack's true intentions. The unsent letter proving Jack wanted Connor to inherit. Your Honor, this case is about fraud, plain and simple. Tyler Blake manufactured a will to steal his brother's inheritance. He exploited the death of a witness, paid off another, and manipulated the legal system to legitimize theft. Every piece of evidence points to forgery. The timeline doesn't work. The witnesses don't corroborate. The forensics prove the document is recent. And most damningly, we have Jack Blake's own words, written 5 days before the alleged will signing, stating his clear intention to leave everything to Connor. He gestured toward me. Connor Blake has done nothing but honor his father's memory. He served his country with distinction. He trusted his brother to do right by him. That trust was betrayed in the cruelest way possible. This court has an opportunity to correct that betrayal, to ensure Jack Blake's actual wishes are honored, and to send a message that fraud will not be tolerated no matter how sophisticated the scheme. Wade sat down. Judge Pierce looked to Strand. Your Honor, this case is about a son's grief manifesting as accusation. Connor Blake, by his own admission, barely knew his father. 15 years separated from the ranch, from Tyler, from any real understanding of what Jack Blake wanted. He's constructed a narrative where he's the victim and Tyler's the villain, but the evidence doesn't support that fantasy. Strand paced, building his counter-argument. Yes, there's a forensic dispute about the will. Experts disagree. That's the nature of forensic science. It's not absolute. But what's not in dispute is that Jack Blake had concerns about Connor. Dr. Vance testified to that. Jack worried his younger son was too soft, too fragile for the demands of ranching. Those concerns were documented in September and October 2009, the exact time period when this will was created. He pointed at Tyler. Tyler Blake has poured his life into that ranch. He's made it profitable, expanded the herd, improved the infrastructure. He's done exactly what a responsible steward should do. Meanwhile, Connor has done nothing but serve in the military and struggle with mental health issues that, by his own admission, sometimes distort his perception of reality. The will is legitimate. The witnesses were real people who signed it. And even if there are questions about how it was executed, the substance reflects Jack Blake's rational judgment that Tyler was the better choice to preserve his legacy. This court should uphold that judgment. Judge Pierce was silent for a long moment after Strand sat down. He reviewed his notes, flipped through exhibits, the courtroom so quiet I could hear papers rustling. Gentlemen, I've heard extensive testimony over 3 days. I've reviewed forensic evidence, witness statements, expert analyses, and documentary proof. This is a complex case with credibility issues on multiple fronts. He paused and my heart hammered against my ribs. However, the burden of proof in a petition to set aside a will is clear and convincing evidence of fraud or undue influence. After careful consideration, I find that burden has been met. Tyler's face went pale. Strand put a hand on his arm, but Tyler shook it off. The forensic evidence, while disputed, raises serious questions about the will's authenticity. More importantly, the testimony of Harold Chambers combined with Jack Blake's unsent letter establishes clear intent contrary to the will Tyler produced. The suspicious death of one witness and the paid cooperation of another further undermines the document's credibility. Judge Pierce looked directly at Tyler. Mr. Blake, I find that you manufactured this will after the death of Ramon Cortez, paid Donna Price to provide false witness testimony, and presented fraudulent evidence to this court. The will dated October 15, 2009, is hereby declared invalid and set aside. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Margaret grabbed my hand, squeezing tight. Wade remained perfectly still, waiting for the rest. The estate of Jack Blake shall be distributed according to the unsigned will drafted by Harold Chambers, which best reflects the decedent's actual intentions. Connor Blake is hereby appointed administrator of the estate with full authority to take possession of the property. Tyler Blake is ordered to vacate the ranch within 30 days and provide a full accounting of all estate assets and revenues. He brought his gavel down once, sharp and final. This court is adjourned. I'd won. The ranch was mine. Everything Dad had wanted for me was finally coming true. The courtroom erupted in controlled chaos. Reporters scrambling for their phones, spectators whispering, the federal agents tightening their perimeter. But when I looked at Tyler, I didn't see defeat. I saw something else entirely. His hands had stopped shaking. His expression had gone calm, almost peaceful. And there, at the corner of his mouth, was the faintest hint of a smile. Something was very wrong. Victor Strand was already gathering papers, whispering urgently with Tyler. But Tyler wasn't listening. He sat perfectly still, staring at nothing, that strange smile fixed on his face like he knew a secret the rest of us didn't. Tyler stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and looked directly at me for the first time since the hearing began. His eyes were clear, focused, not the eyes of a man who just lost everything. "Congratulations, little brother," he said, his voice carrying across the courtroom with eerie calm. "You won." Before I could respond, two federal marshals approached, badges displayed. "Tyler Blake, you're under arrest. Elder fraud, conspiracy, and perjury." Tyler held out his wrists calmly. No resistance, no protest, just quiet compliance that felt more unsettling than if he'd fought. As they led him past, he leaned close. "Enjoy the ranch while you can. The cartel doesn't care about court orders. They know exactly where to find you. You won the battle, Connor, but the war's just starting." Then he was gone, escorted through the side door in handcuffs, leaving me standing in the courtroom I just won with the sick certainty that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Whatever peace I'd expected from victory evaporated like morning dew in the high desert sun. Wade was already on his phone, coordinating with federal prosecutors about Tyler's arrest and the cartel investigation. Ray was pulling up surveillance feeds from the ranch on his tablet, checking for cartel presence, his face grim as he studied the screens. Margaret stood close, her presence a reminder that I wasn't alone in whatever came next. But even her steadiness couldn't quiet the dread settling in my gut. Judge Pierce called us back to the bench before we could leave, his expression grave beneath his reading glasses. "Mr. Blake, I'm aware of the threats against you and the criminal element involved in this case. I've been in contact with federal authorities throughout these proceedings. I'm ordering court security to escort you from the building, and I'm strongly recommending you accept federal protective measures until the threat is neutralized." "I'm not hiding, Your Honor." The words came out more defiant than I intended. "That's your choice, and I respect it. But understand, winning this case may have put a target on your back. The ranch you just inherited might become your gravesite if you're not careful. These people don't lose gracefully. Act accordingly." He held my gaze for a moment, the weight of his experience evident. How many cases had he presided over? How many times had he seen victory turn to tragedy because someone underestimated their enemies? "I understand, sir. I hope you do." Court dismissed. We left through a side entrance, 4 federal agents forming a protective diamond around our group. The hallway was clear, swept by security, but I could feel eyes on us from somewhere. Reporters maybe, or something worse. Ray had his hand inside his jacket, resting on whatever weapon he carried there. The parking garage was underground, our vehicles positioned near the exit for quick departure. Wade had already arranged the convoy, Ray's vehicle behind us, another unmarked car driven by one of Ray's former Marine contacts ahead. Everyone on high alert, scanning windows and rooftops and anywhere a shooter might position themselves. "This is excessive," Margaret said quietly as we climbed into Wade's truck. "We're in a courthouse parking garage in Burns, Oregon, not Fallujah. Tell that to the 14 people Javier Reyes killed in supposedly safe places," Ray responded from his vehicle via the radio Wade had given us. "Cartel doesn't play by civilized rules. They go where the target is, and they don't care about collateral damage." The drive back to Boise felt like a tactical movement through hostile territory. Every vehicle that got too close sparked tension. Every overpass could hide a sniper. Every traffic light was a potential ambush point. My combat instincts, dormant for years, roared back to life. Check mirrors, note escape routes, identify potential threats. The PTSD I'd worked so hard to manage threatened to overwhelm the medication holding it at bay. Wade drove in silence, both hands on the wheel, checking mirrors constantly. He'd been in combat zones too, knew the feeling of being hunted. His jaw was set, eyes focused, professional despite the circumstances. My phone buzzed constantly, news outlets, the sheriff, my VA caseworker, and scattered among them messages from unknown numbers. First, a photo of the ranch house taken today, showing federal vehicles. Someone had been watching. Second, Margaret's house in Caldwell. Third, just text, you made your choice. Now we make ours. I showed Wade. He cursed, redirected protection to Margaret's house, called her neighbor. They're trying to scare us, Wade said, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. It's working. We reached Boise as the sun was setting, the mountains to the east turning purple in the fading light. Instead of going to our respective homes, we regrouped at Wade's office, the third-floor warehouse conversion suddenly feeling like a forward operating base. Ray arrived with equipment, 2 Marine contacts joining us. Former infantry from the way they moved. Situation update, Ray said, connecting his laptop to the screen. I've got eyes on the ranch, your apartment, and Margaret's place. No cartel presence. Tyler's in federal custody in Portland. Javier and his crew cleared out before marshals secured the ranch. Where are they now? Unknown. Best guess is they're planning their next move. They just lost their asset. Example meaning? Meaning kill everyone involved as a message. They've done it before. Margaret had gone pale. So what do? We have options, Wade said. Boss, federal witness protection, private security, or work with the FBI to draw them out. High risk, but it ends the threat permanently. I'll do it, I said immediately. Connor, no. Margaret stood. Don't throw your life away. If I don't end this, I'll spend forever looking over my shoulder. I'd rather face them now. Ray nodded. The ranch, they'll expect you there. We make it look like you're claiming the property. Let them think they have an easy target. Wade looked at me for a long moment. You understand this is dangerous. These are professionals. I spent 2 tours facing people trying to kill me every day. I know dangerous. Then start making calls. It took Wade 3 hours to set up the operation. The FBI was hesitant, but Ray's documentation of Javier's history convinced them. Special Agent Jennifer Martinez would be the lead. Former Marine herself, she understood the tactical considerations. She'd run operations against Los Hermanos before, knew their patterns, their methods. We position you at the ranch, she explained over a conference call. Make it look like you're settling in, assessing the property. We set up surveillance on every access point, have teams ready to move the moment they appear. You wear a wire, stay in communication at all times. You're authorized to defend yourself if necessary, but the goal is apprehension. We want these guys alive to testify. Margaret was crying quietly in the corner. I went to her, took her hands. I have to do this. I know. I just wish you didn't. She wiped her eyes. Your father would be proud. Stubborn runs in the family. We spent the rest of the night planning, reviewing satellite imagery of the ranch, discussing approach vectors and fallback positions. It felt like mission planning in Helmand. At some point, I must have fallen asleep because I woke to Wade shaking my shoulder, dawn light streaming through the windows. Time to move. FBI wants you in position by 0900. Ray handed me coffee and a Kevlar vest. Welcome back to war, Blake. I strapped on the vest, checked the Glock 19 the FBI had provided. The weight was familiar, comforting. The convoy to the ranch was different from yesterday's retreat. This time we were moving toward the threat. FBI vehicles front and back, communications active, everyone ready. As we turned onto the dirt road leading to the property, I saw it clearly for the first time since I was 13. The house where I'd grown up, the barn where Dad had taught me to work on equipment, the fields where I'd learned to ride horses. Beautiful in the morning light, high desert gold and green under endless blue sky. Also the place where my brother had murdered our father. And if the FBI's plan didn't work, the place where I might die too. The war for the Blake Ranch was about to begin. The Blake Ranch looked different through the scope of preparation for violence. What had been my childhood home was now a tactical battlefield. Every structure and sight line analyzed for defensive positions and kill zones. FBI Special Agent Jennifer Martinez walked the property with military precision, marking positions on a tablet while her team installed cameras and communications equipment. You'll be in the main house, she explained, pointing toward the 2-story log structure where I'd lived until I was 13. Upper floor gives you elevation advantage and multiple exits. We'll have sharpshooters here, and here. She indicated the barn loft, a stand of cottonwoods near the north fence, and an old water tower overlooking the driveway. The moment they breach the perimeter, you get on comms and we converge. I stood on the porch where Tyler and I used to sit on summer evenings, eating sandwiches Mom made before she got sick, watching Dad work cattle in the distance. Now I was standing here wearing Kevlar and carrying a Glock, waiting to draw a drug cartel into an ambush. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ray approached with a radio and earpiece. "This is your lifeline. Throat mic means you can whisper and we'll hear you. Panic button on the side triggers immediate response. Less than 30 seconds from first alert to full team deployment." 30 seconds is a long time when someone's shooting at you, which is why you've also got this. He handed me a short-barreled shotgun, Remington 870 loaded with buckshot, close quarters weapon, point and click, no finesse required. You remember your training? Some of it. Muscle memory's what counts. Someone comes through that door, you don't think, you just react. He gripped my shoulder. "You did 2 tours, Blake. You know how to stay alive under fire. This is no different." Except it was different. In Afghanistan, I'd had a rifle company backing me up, air support on call, the full weight of the United States military behind every patrol. Here I had a handful of FBI agents, some former Marines working private security, and a whole lot of open desert where bad things could happen before help arrived. Margaret insisted on staying, positioned in a FBI command vehicle parked 3 miles away where she could monitor communications but remain out of danger. Wade was with her, providing legal oversight and probably going out of his mind with worry. He'd made me promise to follow FBI protocols, to let the professionals handle the violence. I'd promised, knowing that promises made before combat rarely survive contact with reality. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning cool, leaving the high desert shimmering with heat. I walked through the house, touching things that sparked fragmentary memories. The kitchen table where Dad had taught me to tie flies for fishing. The living room fireplace where we'd burn scrap wood on cold winter nights. The stairs I'd raced Tyler up 1,000 times, always losing because his legs were longer. Upstairs in what had been my bedroom, someone had set up a monitoring station. Screens showing feeds from perimeter cameras, satellite view of the ranch and surrounding roads, thermal imaging capable of detecting body heat from a quarter-mile away. FBI tech specialist named Chen sat at the console, headphones on, watching for any sign of approach. "How long do we wait?" I asked. "As long as it takes. Could be hours, could be days. Cartels are patient when they need to be." Chen adjusted one of the screens, zooming in on the access road. "But my money's on today. They know you won the court case yesterday. They know Tyler's in federal custody. They know their window for retaliation is closing fast. If they're going to make a move, it'll be soon." I sat in a chair by the window, shotgun across my lap, watching the land I'd just inherited. 300 miles of high desert, sage and juniper, cattle grazing peacefully in distant pastures. Worth over $1 million. Worth my father's life. Worth whatever was about to happen here. The radio crackled. "Agent Martinez. All units, we have movement on County Road 47. 2 vehicles, black Suburbans, no plates visible. Approaching from the south." My heart rate spiked. Chen's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the feed. 2 SUVs, heavily tinted windows, driving slowly like they were surveilling the property. They passed the ranch entrance once, continued north, disappeared around a bend. "Could be nothing," Chen said. "Lot of ranches out here, could be headed anywhere." But 20 minutes later, they came back, this time from the north, and this time they slowed as they approached the entrance. The lead vehicle turned onto the gravel driveway. "Here we go," Martinez said over the radio, her voice calm and professional. "All units weapons free. Hold positions. Let them come in. Blake, you copy?" "Copy." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The Suburbans rolled up the long driveway, dust billowing behind them. They stopped 50 yards from the house, engines idling. Nobody got out, just 2 black vehicles sitting there, windows dark, waiting. I moved away from the window, positioning myself behind a heavy oak dresser that would provide some cover if shooting started. Chambered around in the shotgun, the mechanical sound loud in the quiet room. Chen had binoculars watching the vehicles. 4 occupants in lead vehicle, 3 in trail, all male, all appear to be armed. The driver's door of the lead Suburban opened. A man stepped out, and even from this distance, I recognized him from Ray's surveillance photos. Javier Reyes. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing jeans and a leather jacket despite the heat. He scanned the property with the practiced eye of someone who'd done tactical assessments before, noting the barn, the outbuildings, the sight lines. He walked toward the house slowly, hands visible and empty, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps. "Connor Blake," he called out, his voice carrying clearly in the desert air. "I know you're in there. Come out. We need to talk." I stayed silent, watching through a crack in the curtains. "Your brother owes my organization $400,000. He cannot pay from prison. This debt does not disappear. Someone must pay." Martinez's voice in my ear. "Do not engage. Let him talk himself into federal charges." Javier continued, "You have the ranch now. The court gave it to you. Sell it, give us what we're owed, and we leave peacefully. No violence, no problems, just business." Still, I said nothing. His tone hardened. "Or you can refuse and we take what we need. Starting with you, I have killed 14 men who refuse to pay their debts. You will be 15 unless you are smart." The threat was clear, recorded on multiple devices, federal agents as witnesses. Extortion, intimidation, enough to put Javier away for years. But he didn't care about legal consequences. Men like him operated outside the law, always had. I made my decision, stepped to the window where he could see me, shotgun visible but pointed down. "The ranch isn't for sale, not to you, not to anyone." Javier smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. "Then you choose death. Unfortunate, but not unexpected." He turned, walked back toward the Suburbans, got in. The vehicles started backing up, turning around, driving away. "They're leaving?" Chen sounded confused. "No. I'd seen this before in Afghanistan, the probe, the assessment, the withdrawal. They're coming back with a plan." Martinez confirmed it. "All units maintain positions. This was reconnaissance. They'll return." We waited. An hour passed. 2. The sun climbed toward its peak, heat radiating off the metal roof. I drank water, checked my weapon, tried to quiet my mind the way I'd learned in the Marines. Fear before contact was normal, useful even. It kept you sharp, but you couldn't let it paralyze you. Ray called on a secure line. "How you holding up?" "Been worse. Remember Hellman, that convoy ambush outside Marja? You kept your head then, you'll keep it now." That was different. I was 22 and stupid, didn't know enough to be scared. "You're not scared, Blake, you're ready. There's a difference." 3 hours after their first appearance, the Suburbans returned. This time they didn't slow down, didn't stop for conversation. They drove straight onto the property, fast, splitting as they approached the house. One went left toward the barn, one right toward the bunkhouse, flanking maneuver designed to divide defensive fire. "Contact," Martinez called. "All units engage when clear." Doors opened. Men poured out, 8 of them total, all armed with pistols and what looked like AR-15 style rifles. They moved with tactical precision, using vehicles for cover, coordinating their approach. The FBI sharpshooter in the barn took the first shot. The crack of the rifle echoed across the valley, and one of Javier's men went down, clutching his shoulder. Not a kill shot, but definitely effective. All hell broke loose. The cartel members returned fire, bullets punching through barn wood, ricocheting off metal siding. The sharpshooter repositioned, took another shot, missed this time. From the cottonwood stand, Ray opened up with a hunting rifle, controlled shots, covering fire that kept the attackers pinned near their vehicles. 2 men broke for the house, sprinting across open ground. I lined up the shotgun, waiting for them to get closer. At 20 yards, I squeezed the trigger, the recoil familiar and brutal. Buckshot spread caught the lead man's center mass, dropping him hard. His partner dove for cover behind a water trough, returning fire blindly. Chen was on the radio coordinating the FBI response, calling for backup, giving positions and casualties. The house shook as bullets hammered into the logs, but the old timber held. Dad had built this place to last. Javier was still behind his Suburban, directing his men, professional despite the ambush. He sent 2 more toward the house while others laid suppressing fire on the FBI positions. The tactic was sound, overwhelm the defenders with volume, create openings for assault. Glass shattered in the kitchen downstairs. Someone had breached the ground floor. I moved to the hallway, covered the stairs, heard boots on hardwood. 2 men moving fast. They came up firing, bullets chewing through drywall, and I returned fire with the shotgun. Once, twice. The hallway filling with smoke and noise and the copper smell of blood. 1 man down, the other retreating, wounded but mobile. I pressed the advantage, moved down the stairs, cleared the corner the way I had been trained, found him in the living room, trying to reload with shaking hands. We locked eyes for a moment, this stranger who'd come to kill me for money he hadn't earned. "Drop it," I said. He reached for his pistol instead. I didn't give him a second chance. Outside, the gunfire intensified, then suddenly stopped. In the ringing silence, I heard Martinez calling all clear, heard vehicles approaching, sirens in the distance. The FBI had responded in force, cutting off escape routes, overwhelming the remaining cartel members with numbers and training. I walked out onto the porch, shotgun lowered, and saw the aftermath. 4 men down, 3 in FBI custody, 1 escaped in a Suburban that made it past the roadblock. Javier Reyes was on his knees, hands zip-tied, blood running from a scalp wound, federal agents surrounding him with weapons drawn. He saw me and spat blood. "You think you've won? Los Hermanos doesn't forgive. We have people everywhere. You'll never be safe." "Then you better hope prison keeps you alive long enough to warn them off," I said. Martinez read him his rights, loaded him into an armored vehicle. EMTs arrived for the wounded, both ours and theirs. Miraculously, the only FBI casualty was a flesh wound on the barn sharpshooter. The cartel hadn't been so lucky. As the sun started to set, turning the desert orange and purple, I sat on the porch steps with Ray, both of us too wired to move, too exhausted to care. "Welcome home," Ray said and laughed, slightly manic edge that comes after combat. "Some welcome. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse." Margaret and Wade arrived in the command vehicle, Margaret hugging me hard enough to hurt, Wade gripping my shoulder and not saying anything, because there wasn't anything to say. The ranch was mine. I'd defended it, proven I was willing to fight for what Dad had wanted me to have. But the cost was written in bullet holes and blood on the ground, in the bodies being loaded into Corners vans, in the knowledge that I'd killed 2 men today. That night, the FBI kept a perimeter, rotating guards, making sure there were no more surprises. I slept in my old bedroom, fitful and full of dreams about Dad, about Tyler, about the man in the living room who'd made the wrong choice and paid for it. 3 days later, Tyler's criminal trial began in federal court in Portland. The probate fraud was handled, the will invalidated, but now came the reckoning for his crimes. Elder abuse, conspiracy, perjury, and after the ranch firefight, additional charges of conspiracy to commit murder since his debts had triggered the cartel attack. Wade represented me as a victim witness. Victor Strand was gone, replaced by a public defender named Rebecca Stein, who had the thankless job of defending a case with overwhelming evidence. Tyler sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I remembered, broken in a way that was almost pitiable. The prosecution was efficient and brutal. They presented the forged will, the fake signatures, the payments to Donna Price. They showed Tyler's financial records, the loans from Los Hermanos, the desperate scramble to keep the ranch when probate was challenged. They detailed the cartel attack, played the 911 calls, showed crime scene photos that made the jury flinch. Through it all, Tyler sat motionless, staring at nothing. On the 3rd day, something unexpected happened. Stein called Tyler to the stand in his own defense. Wade grabbed my arm. "He's going to testify." "Can they make him?" "No, this is voluntary. He's got something to say." Tyler took the oath, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Stein walked him through his background, his military service, his struggles after discharge. She painted a picture of a man damaged by war, making poor choices from a place of trauma and desperation. Then she got to the core question. "Tyler, did you forge the will purporting to be your father's final wishes?" "Yes." Simple, direct, no hedging. "Why?" "Because I was going bankrupt. The cartel was threatening to kill me if I didn't pay. I needed the ranch to survive." He looked at the jury. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I made choices and I own them. But I want you to understand they weren't made from greed. They were made from fear." "Did you know the cartel would attack your brother?" "No, I thought if I went to prison, the debt would be forgotten. I didn't realize they'd go after Connor. That wasn't supposed to happen." The prosecutor's cross-examination was devastating. He walked Tyler through each lie, each forged signature, each moment of calculated fraud. Tyler admitted to all of it, no resistance, accepting responsibility in a way that was either genuine remorse or excellent strategy. Then the prosecutor asked the question that changed everything. "Mr. Blake, let's talk about your father's death." October 30th, 2009. Hunting accident according to the official report. Tyler went very still. New evidence has emerged suggesting the circumstances weren't accidental. The wound angle, the bullet trajectory, inconsistencies in your statement to law enforcement. Would you like to address this? Rebecca Stein objected immediately. Your Honor, my client is not charged with any crime related to his father's death. This line of questioning is beyond the scope of this trial. The judge, a stern woman named Alice Hendricks, considered, I'll allow it as it pertains to motive for the subsequent fraud, overruled. Mr. Blake, you may answer. Tyler looked at me for the first time since the trial started, held my gaze across the courtroom. I saw something in his eyes, resignation maybe, or relief. The burden of 15 years of lying was about to end. It wasn't an accident, he said quietly. The courtroom erupted in whispers and gasps, spectators shifting in their seats, the jury exchanging shocked looks. Judge Hendricks gavelled for order, the sharp cracks echoing off the wood paneling, but the damage was done. A confession to murder, unforced, in open court, recorded by the court reporter, whose fingers had stopped moving on her machine in surprise. Order, Judge Hendricks commanded. Order in this courtroom, or I will clear the gallery. Mr. Blake, you understand you're under oath and that your testimony can be used against you in other proceedings? I understand. Proceed. The prosecutor approached the witness stand carefully, like Tyler might spook if he moved too fast. Explain what you mean by it wasn't an accident. Tyler took a breath, steadying himself. When he spoke, his voice was clear, no hesitation. A man who decided the time for lies had passed. Dad found my marijuana operation that October. I'd been growing in the hidden canyon on the north section of the property for about 8 months at that point, making decent money, getting my debts under control, seeing a way forward for the first time since getting back from Iraq. He was checking fences that afternoon, routine maintenance, and he stumbled on the whole setup. 200 plants, irrigation system, everything. What was his reaction? Rage. I'd never seen him that angry, not when I got arrested for vandalism in high school, not when I came home drunk that time at 17. This was different, like I'd personally betrayed everything he stood for. Tyler's hands gripped the edge of the witness box. He told me I was destroying the family name, that Blake men didn't break the law, didn't take shortcuts, didn't shame their heritage, said he'd call the sheriff himself before he'd let me turn his ranch into a drug farm. What did you say? I tried to explain, told him about the debts I'd racked up after discharge, medical bills from an injury in Fallujah, money I owed to people who don't accept I can't pay as an answer. Told him I was just trying to survive, that I'd stop once I was clear. He didn't care. Tyler's voice cracked slightly. Said making excuses was what weak men did. Said I was making the same choices that killed our mother. Several jury members looked uncomfortable. The prosecutor let the silence stretch, letting the weight of those words settle. What happened next? He said he was going into town in the morning to talk to his lawyer. Said he was changing his will, cutting me out completely. Told me if I wanted to inherit the ranch, I should have acted like I deserved it. Tyler wiped his eyes with the back of his cuffed hands. That's when I knew I'd lost everything. The ranch was all I had. It was supposed to be my future, my security, proof that I mattered. And he was taking it away because I'd made some bad choices. So you went hunting with him 2 weeks later? Yeah, October 30th, supposed to be an elk hunt up in the Wallowas. Just the two of us, like old times. I'd spent those 2 weeks trying to convince myself it would be okay, that he'd cool down, that I could talk him out of changing the will. But the whole drive up, he barely spoke to me. Cold, distant, like I wasn't even his son anymore. Tell the court what happened on that mountain. Tyler looked down at his hands, the courtroom absolutely silent now, everyone leaning forward to hear. We hiked up to a ridge where he'd seen elk sign the year before, set up around midday, waiting for the herd to move through. And I tried one more time. Told him I'd destroy the plants, get clean, find legitimate work. Begged him not to cut me out. Said Connor was just a kid, 13 years old. What did he know about ranching? I was the one who'd worked the land, who understood it, who'd earned it. What did he say? He said earning and deserving are different things. Said I'd never understood that. Told me he'd spent years trying to make me tough, trying to turn me into a man who could handle responsibility. And all he'd created was someone who took shortcuts and blamed others for the consequences. Tyler's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Then he said the worst thing. Said I had his worst qualities. The anger, the stubbornness, the pride. Told me he wouldn't curse Connor or the ranch by giving it to someone who'd just destroy it like I was destroying myself. Said Connor had my mother's heart, my mother's gentle spirit, and that's what the land needed. That must have made you angry. Angry doesn't cover it. I felt erased, like everything I'd done. The army service, the years of hard work, the sacrifices. None of it mattered because I'd made a few mistakes. I told him he was choosing Connor over me because Connor reminded him of Mom. That it wasn't about the land, it was about him never getting over losing her. That Connor was soft, weak, wouldn't last a year running cattle. That I was the strong one, the one who could actually do what needed doing. What was his response? Tyler looked directly at me now, tears streaming down his face. He said, strong isn't the same as good. Connor's better than you, Tyler, better than you'll ever be, and that's why he's getting the ranch. The words hung in the air like smoke. I felt them hit me physically. Validation I'd wanted for 15 years mixed with the horror of how that validation had led to murder. And then, the prosecutor prompted, the rifle was there, leaning against a tree about 5 feet away. I don't even remember deciding to grab it. One second I'm standing there feeling like nothing. The next I've got the rifle and I'm pointing it at him. Tyler's voice broke completely. He didn't even look scared, just disappointed. Said, go ahead, pull the trigger, prove you're exactly who I think you are. So I did. You shot your father deliberately. Yes. With intent to kill. Yes. And then you staged it to look like a hunting accident. Yes. Moved the body, fired another shot into the dirt to explain powder residue, called 911 from the sat phone and told them he'd tripped, rifle discharged. I tried CPR, but he was gone. The sheriff bought it because, why wouldn't he? No motive, grieving son, tragic accident, case closed. The prosecutor walked back to his table, let Tyler's confession sink in with the jury. When he turned back, his expression was grim. Mr. Blake, why are you confessing to this now? You were never charged with your father's death. The statute of limitations hasn't run on murder, but you could have stayed silent, taken your chances on just the fraud charges. Tyler looked at me again. Because my brother deserves to know the truth. Because I'm tired of living with what I did. And because nothing I say or do will make this right, but at least I can stop compounding the lie with more lies. The confession was complete. The prosecutor had what he needed and more. Murder, not just fraud. Tyler had just guaranteed himself decades in prison, possibly life. Judge Hendricks ordered a recess. Federal marshals approached Tyler, but he held up his hand. Can I talk to my brother? Just for a minute, please. Judge Hendricks looked at me. I nodded. They brought Tyler to where I sat behind the prosecutor's table. Gave us space, though marshals stayed close enough to intervene if needed. I'm sorry, Connor. I didn't respond. Didn't know what to say. I know that doesn't mean anything. Can't undo what I did. Can't bring Dad back. But I need you to know it's true. I'm sorry for all of it. The murder, the fraud, the lies. Especially the lies, making you think Dad didn't want you when the truth was he wanted you more than me. Why tell the truth now? Because I'm tired of carrying it. 15 years of waking up knowing I killed our father, stole your inheritance, destroyed what was left of our family. That's its own kind of prison. Might as well make it official. You expect forgiveness? No, I expect exactly what I deserve. Life in prison, probably. Die there knowing I earned it. But I wanted you to hear it from me, the whole truth, so you could have closure I never gave myself. He stood. The marshals moved in. Tyler looked at me one last time. Take care of the ranch. Make Dad proud. Be the man I could never be. They led him away. I sat there feeling hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and left just a shell. I'd wanted the truth for so long, fought for it, nearly died for it. Now I had it and it didn't feel like victory. Just sad. Just the ugly reality of what family could do to each other when greed and fear and weakness overwhelmed love. The trial continued for 2 more days, but the outcome was never in doubt. The jury deliberated 4 hours and came back with guilty on all counts. Federal sentencing guidelines for murder in connection with fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse recommended 40 years to life. At the sentencing hearing 2 weeks later, Judge Hendricks asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. Wade advised against it, said it wasn't necessary, but I felt like I needed to say something. I stood at the podium facing Tyler across the courtroom. I spent 15 years thinking my father abandoned me, that I wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy of his legacy. Tyler let me believe that, encouraged it, used my insecurity to justify his theft. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But I also spent my childhood with a brother who protected me, who taught me to ride a bike, and stood up to bullies and promised we'd always be family. That Tyler existed too. I don't know when he died, when the good parts got overwhelmed by the bad. Maybe in Iraq. Maybe when Dad threatened to cut him out. Maybe it was gradual. I looked at Tyler directly. You killed our father. You stole from me. You destroyed what was left of our family. The law says you should pay for that, and I agree. But I also know that whatever prison they put you in, you built a worse one inside yourself years ago. You'll carry what you did for the rest of your life. That's punishment enough without me adding to it. Tyler was crying now, silent tears running down his face. I don't forgive you, maybe I never will. But I don't hate you either. You're just broken. And I'm sorry for both of us that it came to this. I sat down. Judge Hendricks took a moment before speaking. Mr. Blake, you've been found guilty of serious crimes, including the murder of your father, fraud, and conspiracy. The prosecution recommends the maximum sentence of life without parole. The defense has requested leniency based on your confession and acceptance of responsibility. She paused, looking at Tyler with what might have been sympathy. I presided over many cases in my career. I've seen evil and I've seen weakness. You, Mr. Blake, fall somewhere in between. What you did was heinous, but I believe your remorse is genuine. That said, society must have justice for your victims, particularly your father and brother. I sentence you to 35 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after 25 with good behavior. You will also be required to pay restitution to Connor Blake in the amount of $300,000, representing his stolen inheritance plus damages. You will receive no credit for time served. Court is adjourned. 35 years. Tyler was 38. He'd be 73 before he could even apply for parole. Effectively a life sentence for a man in his 30s. They let him out. He didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Wade pulled me aside. How do you feel? Empty, relieved, say all of it. That's normal. Justice doesn't always feel good. Margaret joined us, linking her arm through mine. What happens now? Now I go home, to the ranch, figure out what to do with it. You don't have to decide today, or next week, or next year. Take your time. But I already knew what I was going to do. Had known since the firefight, since sitting on those porch steps covered in dust and cordite residue. The ranch wasn't just land, it was Dad's dream, his legacy, his belief that Connor Blake was worthy of stewardship. I was going to prove him right. 3 months later, I moved into the ranch house permanently. Hired a foreman named Carlos, who'd worked cattle in Montana for 30 years and knew more about ranching than I'd learned in a lifetime. Started attending auger meetings, learning about grazing rotation and market prices and the 1,000 details that went into running a successful operation. Ray came out once a month to help with security improvements. The cartel arrests had crippled Los Hermanos' operations in the Northwest, but cartels were resilient. We kept proper protocols, good locks, cameras, emergency plans. Wade handled the legal details of Tyler's restitution payments. The court had ordered the money paid from Tyler's prison earnings, which meant it would take decades to collect anything significant. I told Wade to donate whatever came to a fund for foster kids aging out of the system. I didn't want Tyler's money. I had the ranch. Margaret visited often, bringing casseroles and criticism in equal measure. Told me I worked too hard, didn't rest enough, needed to find balance. She was right, but I ignored her anyway. Work was therapy, learning to ranch was healing. Every fence I fixed, every sick cow I nursed, every sunrise I watched from the porch was proof that I could be the man Dad had believed in. I found Dad's original will in the county recorder's office, filed by Harold Chambers after the probate mess got sorted out. With it was a letter I'd never seen, written the day before Dad died. Connor, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're finally old enough to understand. I made mistakes raising you boys. Went too hard on Tyler. Tried to make him tough when he needed to be loved. Went too soft on you. Tried to protect you when you needed to learn strength. Both of you suffered for my failures as a father. I'm leaving you the ranch because I believe you have the heart to protect it. Tyler has the skills but not the temperament. He sees land as property, something to own. You see it as something to serve. That's the difference between a rancher and a businessman. This place will test you, High desert ranching isn't for the weak or the lazy. You'll work harder than you thought possible, fail more than you'll succeed. Question whether it's worth it every time cattle prices drop, or drought hits, or equipment breaks down. But it is worth it, because land outlasts us. The Blake Ranch will be here long after we're gone, providing for families, supporting community, maintaining the balance between use and preservation. That's stewardship. That's legacy. I won't be there to teach you, but you'll learn. You're smart, and you're stubborn, and you care about doing right. Those three things will see you through. I'm proud of you, son. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that enough when I was alive. Be proud of yourself. You've earned it. Your father, Jack Blake. I read it sitting at the kitchen table, Dad's coffee mug in front of me, the one I'd filled every morning since moving in, even though I hated coffee. Just felt right to keep the routine. The letter lived in my wallet now, creased and worn from being unfolded and reread on bad days when I questioned what I was doing here, whether I was capable of living up to Dad's belief in me. 6 months after moving to the ranch, I got a letter from Tyler. Prison mail, carefully opened and inspected by guards, his handwriting shaky but clear. Connor, I know I have no right to write you. You probably threw this away without reading it. But on the chance you made it this far, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for not asking the judge for the maximum sentence. Thank you for not fighting to keep every dollar of restitution. Thank you for taking care of the ranch the way Dad wanted. I hear things in here, news from home, updates from my public defender. She says the ranch is doing well under your management. That makes me happier than you might think. I robbed you of so much. Time with Dad. Years of running the ranch together like we planned as kids. The trust brothers should have. I can't give any of that back. But knowing you're there, doing what Dad wanted, that helps me sleep at night. If you never want to hear from me again, I understand. I won't write unless you write back. But if someday you decide you can forgive me, or at least stop hating me, I'd like that. I'm sober for the first time in 15 years. Prison has that effect. Also in therapy, working through the trauma from Iraq, from Dad, from the choices I made. Won't undo the damage, but maybe it'll help me be better when I get out. If I get out. The ranch is yours. You earned it by fighting for it, defending it, believing in Dad's dream when I only believed in my own survival. I hope it brings you peace. Your brother, Tyler. I didn't throw the letter away. Didn't write back either. Just filed it with the legal papers. Another piece of the complicated history of the Blake family. A year after the trial, I was mending fence in the north pasture when a truck pulled up. Ray at the wheel, someone else in the passenger seat. They got out and I recognized the passenger. Harold Chambers, the attorney who drafted Dad's real will. Mr. Chambers, what brings you out here? Thought you might want to see this. He handed me a folder. Found it when I was cleaning out old files. Letter from your father dated September 2009, right after our first meeting. He asked me to hold it and deliver it when the estate settled. Forgot about it until the probate ruling came through. Better late than never. Inside was another letter in Dad's handwriting. Connor, by the time you read this, you'll know I left you the ranch. Harold will have explained the trust, the conditions, the plan to transfer everything when you're 25. What he can't explain is why. So I'm explaining it now. Your mother and I bought this land in 1981, newly married, full of dreams about building something that would last. We worked it together for 15 years until cancer took her. Hardest day of my life was burying her on that hill overlooking the south pasture. When she died, I almost sold everything. Couldn't imagine staying here surrounded by memories of what I'd lost. But then I'd see you boys playing in the barn or helping with cattle, and I'd remember why we started this. For family, for legacy, for the belief that hard work and good land can support generations. Tyler's not the right steward. I love him, but I see his demons. War damaged him in ways I recognize from my own service. He's angry at the world, at himself, at me. Giving him the ranch would be giving him a weapon to hurt himself with. You're different. Gentle where he's hard. Thoughtful where he's impulsive. You'll make this place more than I ever could. Won't be easy and you'll want to quit 1,000 times. But you won't, because you're your mother's foreign and she never quit on anything in her life. The land will test you and teach you and sometimes break your heart. But it'll also give you purpose, community, connection to something bigger than yourself. That's what ranching is, not owning land, belonging to it. I wish I could be there to see the man you become. I wish I could work alongside you, teach you everything I know, watch you surpass me, Since I can't, I'm trusting Harold to make sure you get what's rightfully yours. Live well, Connor. Love hard. Work harder. And when the ranch gets difficult, remember it's not about the cattle or the money or the property. It's about carrying on a dream that started with two people in love and continues with you. Your father, always Jack Blake. I finished reading and had to sit down right there in the dirt, tears streaming down my face while Ray and Harold stood quietly, giving me space. This was the answer I'd been searching for. Not just proof that Dad wanted me to have the ranch, but why? Not because I'd earned it or deserved it, but because he believed I could protect it, could love it the way he and Mom had loved it. Thank you, I managed finally, for saving this, for bringing it out here. Harold shook my hand. Your father was a good man, complex, difficult sometimes, but good. I'm glad his wishes were finally honored. After they left, I walked to the south pasture, to the hill where Dad had buried Mom. Found the small stone marker, weathered but still legible. Margaret Rose Blake, 1952 to 1996. Beloved wife and mother. I sat next to it and told her about the ranch, about Tyler, about trying to live up to Dad's faith in me. Told her about the firefight and the trial and the long journey to get here. I didn't believe in ghosts or spirits, but it felt important to say it out loud, to acknowledge that this legacy wasn't just Dad's, it was hers too. The sun set over the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and gold. Cattle lowed in the distance. Wind rustled through sage. The high desert sang its evening song. I was home, finally completely home. And tomorrow I'd get up before dawn, make coffee in Dad's mug, and do the work. Because that's what stewards do. They show up, they persist, they honor the dreams of those who came before. Tyler had tried to steal this from me. The cartel had tried to kill me for it. But the ranch was mine now, legally and morally and in every way that mattered. The Blake Ranch would continue, not because of who I was, but because of what I chose to be. And that was enough. The first winter on the ranch nearly broke me. Not the cold, though high desert winters could drop to 20 below and stay there for weeks. Not the work, though 16-hour days of breaking ice on water troughs and hauling hay to snowbound cattle left me so tired I'd fall asleep eating dinner. What nearly broke me was the silence. I'd spent my adult life surrounded by people. Barracks full of Marines, VA hospitals with constant noise. Even Riverside had the background hum of other lives being lived nearby. The ranch in winter was different. Carlos, the foreman I'd hired, lived in town and drove out each morning, leaving by 4 when daylight failed. That meant 14 hours alone each day with nothing but wind and cattle and the ghosts of my family. Some nights, I'd sit at the kitchen table with Dad's letters spread out, reading them until I'd memorized every word, trying to understand the man who'd believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Other nights, I'd walk through the house touching things that sparked memories. The door frame where Dad had marked our heights every birthday. The window Mom had looked through while washing dishes, watching for Dad to come in from the fields. The living room where I'd killed a man defending this place. Margaret called every evening at 7, our routine as reliable as feeding time. She'd ask how many cattle I'd checked, whether I'd eaten real food or just coffee and determination, if I'd talked to anyone besides Carlos. I'd lie and say I was fine, managing, settling in. She'd tell me I was full of it, but she loved me anyway. Those calls were the tether keeping me connected to the world beyond fence lines and frozen ground. 3 months into my first winter, Wade drove out unannounced, found me in the barn at midnight, trying to save a calf whose mother had rejected it, bottle feeding and rubbing circulation into legs too cold to stand. He watched for a while before speaking. You're not sleeping. Calf needs feeding every 4 hours, can't sleep through that. Carlos could do this. It's my ranch, my responsibility. Wade sat down on a hay bale, patient in that lawyer way that meant he had something to say and would wait until I was ready to hear it. The calf finally took the bottle, sucking weakly, and I felt a small victory in that. One life saved, one thing done right. Tyler wrote you another letter, Wade said finally. Came to my office since you're not accepting prison mail directly. I don't want it. I know, but I read it. You should hear what he said. He confessed to murder, Wade. He's serving 35 years. What else is there to say? He's asking you to consider visiting. Says there are things he needs to tell you face to face. Things he can't write in a letter the guards will read. I focused on the calf, on the simple mechanics of feeding, of keeping something alive through a hard winter. No. Connor, I'm not saying you have to forgive him. I'm not even saying you have to like him. But he's the only family you have left besides Margaret and me. And what he did, the murder, the fraud, all of it, it's part of your story whether you want it to be or not. Might help to hear his side of it directly. Might give you closure. I have closure. Judge gave it to me when she sentenced him to 35 years. Wade stood, brushed hay off his pants. All right, but if you change your mind, I'll drive you there. Portland's only 5 hours. We could do it in a day. He left me alone with the calf and the silence, and the weight of a choice I wasn't ready to make. Spring came late that year, snow lingering into April, mud season stretching into May. But when the land finally greened up, it was like watching a resurrection. Grass pushing through dead ground, calves being born in the warming nights, the cottonwoods along the creek leafing out in that brilliant early green that only lasts a few weeks before summer dulls it. Carlos taught me everything Dad hadn't lived long enough to teach. How to read the land, to know when cattle needed to be moved to fresh pasture, to spot sickness in an animal before it became crisis. How to maintain equipment, to keep 100-year-old irrigation systems running, to fix fence in a way that would last decades. How to be part of the rhythm of the ranch rather than fighting against it. Your father was a good rancher, Carlos told me one afternoon as we were moving cattle to summer pasture. But he was hard, wanted everything perfect, his way, no mistakes. You're different. You listen to the land instead of trying to force it. Is that good or bad? It's better. Land doesn't care about perfection, cares about respect. You give it that. I'd been ranching for 8 months when the idea first came to me. Margaret had driven out for Sunday dinner, a tradition we'd established. Her bringing food I'd actually eat instead of the coffee and toast that sustained me most days. We sat on the porch watching the sun set, her in Dad's old chair, me on the steps like I used to sit with Tyler when we were kids. You ever think about what comes next, she asked. Next how? After you. You're 28, no wife, no kids. You build this place up, learn to run it properly, and then what? Who inherits when you're gone? I hadn't thought that far ahead. Had been so focused on honoring Dad's legacy that I'd never considered creating my own. The ranch could support more than just you and Carlos, Margaret continued. This old bunkhouse, the one Tyler was using for his drug operation, you could convert it, make it into housing, bring in people who need the work and the land. Ranch hands are expensive. I'm barely profitable as is. I'm not talking about employees. I'm talking about veterans. Kids like you were, aging out of service with no place to go, dealing with PTSD and disability, and the same loneliness you're fighting. Bring them here, teach them ranching, give them purpose while they figure out what comes next. The idea took root immediately, felt right in a way few things had since moving here. I'd been saved by the Marines when I aged out of Riverside, given structure and purpose and the discipline I'd needed. But not every vet had a ranch to come home to. Most ended up like I'd been before the inheritance, drifting between VA appointments and disability checks in the slow erosion of purpose. It would take money, I said, renovations, insurance, legal setup. I'd need to create a nonprofit, hire staff, do it properly. So do it properly. Use the restitution money Tyler's paying. You said you didn't want it for yourself. Use it for this. The restitution payments were minimal, would take decades to amount to anything significant. But Margaret was right. They could seed something. Combined with grants, donations, maybe a loan against the ranch, I could build something meaningful. I spent the next 3 months developing the plan. Worked with Wade to create a nonprofit structure. Brought in a grant writer who helped me apply for funding from veterans organizations. Talked to the VA about partnerships, to local contractors about renovation costs, to other ranchers about job training programs. The response was overwhelming. Turned out a lot of people wanted to help veterans but didn't know how. A ranch-based program teaching practical skills while providing mental health support and community, that resonated. Within 6 months, I had $200,000 in committed funding. Within 9 months, construction crews were converting the old bunkhouse into residential space for 8 veterans at a time. I called the program Second Sunrise Ranch, named it after something Dad had written in one of his letters, about how every morning on a ranch is a chance to start over, to do better than yesterday. Seemed fitting for men and women trying to rebuild their lives after service. The first residents arrived on a cold November morning, exactly 1 year after I'd moved to the ranch. 5 men, 2 women, ages ranging from 22 to 47. All veterans, all dealing with various degrees of PTSD, physical disability, or the simple struggle of transitioning to civilian life, all looking for something they couldn't name but hoped to find here. I gathered them in the barn that first day, unsure of what to say, feeling the weight of responsibility for these lives I was now connected to. Carlos stood beside me, solid and patient, ready to help shoulder the load. The morning was crisp, frost still clinging to the grass, their breath visible in the cold air as they waited to hear what came next. I'm not going to pretend this is easy, I told them. Ranching is hard work, early mornings, long days, and the land doesn't care if you're tired or hurting, but it also doesn't care about your rank or your service record or what you did before you got here. It just asks that you show up and do the work. That's all any of us can do. Show up, do the work. Try to be better tomorrow than we were today. I looked at each of them in turn, saw myself reflected back, the lost look of people who'd served their country and then been cut loose to figure out civilian life without a map or mission. Saw the same questions I'd carried. What now? Where do I belong? Does anyone care if I disappear? I was you, I continued. Came home from Afghanistan with medals and nightmares. Ended up in a VA hospital because I couldn't handle being back in the world. I know what it feels like to think you're broken beyond repair, but you're here, which means you're still fighting. That's all I ask. Keep fighting. We'll figure out the rest together. Over the next months, I watched them transform in ways large and small. Watched Martinez, the former Army sergeant who'd lost his left leg clearing IEDs in Syria, learn to ride horses again. The first time he managed to mount independently, adapting his prosthetic to the stirrups Carlos had modified, he sat there for 10 minutes just looking out at the valley, tears streaming down his face. Later, he told me it was the first time since his injury that he'd felt whole, that the horse didn't care about his missing leg, only about whether he could ride. Chen had been a Marine Scout sniper, 3 tours, so many confirmed kills he'd stopped counting. Came back unable to sleep more than 3 hours without nightmares of targets that turned into faces. The ranch work exhausted him physically in a way combat never had, 16-hour days of fence mending and cattle moving and equipment maintenance. After 3 weeks of physical labor, he slept 6 hours straight. After 2 months, he was sleeping through most nights. He told me the work made his hands too tired to shake, his mind too tired to replay the war. Rodriguez had been a Navy corpsman, served with a Marine unit in Fallujah, saw things no medical professional should see, patched together too many young men who died despite her best efforts. She tried to kill herself twice after discharge, once with pills, once by driving her car into a tree. The VA had saved her body, but couldn't touch the guilt. At the ranch, she found purpose in the garden, in growing things instead of watching them die. Started small, just tomatoes and lettuce. Expanded to herbs, then vegetables, then a full acre of produce that fed the entire operation. Told me once that every plant that thrived was proof she could still save something. There was Jackson, Air Force mechanic, who'd kept helicopters flying in impossible conditions, came home to find civilian mechanics' jobs didn't want someone with PTSD. Worked our equipment like he was born to it. Kept ancient tractors running when they should have been scrap metal. Found peace in the logic of machines that did what you asked if you treated them right. There was Kim, Army medic from Korea who spoke 3 languages but couldn't hold a conversation without flashbacks interrupting. Found her voice again working with cattle, the simple communication that didn't require words, reading body language, and responding to need rather than command. There was Peters, Marine rifleman who'd walked point in Ramadi, came home with traumatic brain injury that made him forget conversations mid-sentence. The routine of ranch life gave him structure, the same tasks every day until they became muscle memory that didn't require his damaged short-term recall. Each one arrived broken in their own way. Each one found healing in the work, the land, the community of others who understood what they'd survived. I didn't fix any of them. The ranch did that. All I provided was the space and the belief that they mattered enough to invest in. They taught me as much as I taught them. Taught me that leadership wasn't about having all the answers, but about being willing to figure them out together. Taught me that healing wasn't linear, that bad days would come even after good progress. Taught me that sometimes the best thing you could do for someone was just sit with them in their pain, not trying to fix it, just acknowledging it was real. Second Sunrise became my purpose in a way the ranch alone had never quite been. The land was Dad's dream, but the program was mine. a way to honor his belief in stewardship while creating something that mattered beyond property values and profit margins. 15 months into the program, Wade called with news. Tyler wanted to see me. Not a request this time, but something urgent, health-related. The prison doctor had found something concerning, wanted to run more tests, but Tyler was refusing treatment until he could talk to his brother. "What's wrong with him?" I asked. "They won't say over the phone, medical privacy. But the warden called me personally, which means it's serious. Connor, I know you're not ready, but if something happens and you didn't go, you'll regret it." I hung up without committing. Spent 2 days working myself into exhaustion, trying not to think about it. But Martinez noticed my distraction, pulled me aside after dinner one evening. "Whatever's eating you, boss, deal with it. Can't run from problems. Tried that, doesn't work." "It's my brother. He's sick, wants to see me." Martinez nodded slowly. "The one who killed your dad." "Yeah. You going?" "Don't know. Part of me says he doesn't deserve my time. Part of me says he's still my brother. Both parts are right. That's what makes it hard." Martinez looked out at the darkening valley, the lights from the main house and bunkhouse warm against the night. "I had a sergeant in Syria, guy who saved my life twice. Then he cracked under the pressure, shot a civilian during a raid, killed a kid. They sent him to Leavenworth. I didn't visit for 3 years. Couldn't reconcile the man who saved me with the man who killed that child." "What changed?" "I realized carrying hate was heavier than carrying forgiveness. Didn't mean I forgot what he did or said it was okay. Just meant I stopped letting it poison me. Went to see him, heard him out, left feeling lighter. Not because he earned it, because I needed it." That night I called Wade. "I'll go, but only if you come with me." 2 days later, we drove to the federal penitentiary in Sheridan, Oregon, where Tyler was serving his sentence. The facility was modern and grim, concrete and razor wire, the kind of place designed to warehouse human mistakes. We went through security, surrendered our phones and belts in dignity, got escorted to a visiting room that smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. Tyler was already there, sitting at a metal table bolted to the floor. He'd lost weight, gotten older in the 2 years since sentencing. There was gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there at trial. He wore prison blues and a medical bracelet on his left wrist. We sat across from each other, Wade beside me, a guard visible through the window. Tyler studied me like he was memorizing details he might not get another chance to see. "Thanks for coming," he said finally. "I know it wasn't easy." "Wade said you're sick." "Pancreatic cancer, stage 3. Doctors give me maybe 18 months with treatment, 6 without. I'm doing the treatment, but the odds aren't great." The news should have hit harder. This was my brother telling me he was dying. But I felt mostly numb, like the information was happening to someone else. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it despite everything. "Don't be. Cancer's probably kinder than dying old in here." Tyler folded his hands on the table. "I asked you to come because there are things I need you to know, things I couldn't write in letters the guards read. So tell me." He took a breath, choosing words carefully. "The drug operation, the marijuana growing, that was real, but it wasn't the whole story. I got involved with Los Hermanos because I was funneling money to someone. Someone Dad helped, someone who needed protection." "I don't understand." "There was a woman, name was Elena Cortez, Ramon's daughter." Tyler saw my confusion. "Ramon who worked the ranch for 20 years. Ramon whose signature I forged on the will. His daughter Elena was 16 when her father died. Smart kid, wanted to go to college. Ramon had saved some money, but not enough. Dad promised to help, set up a trust fund for her education. $5,000 a year for 4 years. So when Dad died, the trust never got funded. Everything was tied up in probate. Elena's mom didn't know how to access it, didn't speak enough English to navigate the legal system. The money just sat there while Elena worked 2 jobs trying to afford community college. What's this have to do with the cartel? I found out about it 3 years after Dad died. Went to see Maria, Ramon's widow, about something else, and she mentioned Elena struggling. I felt guilty, ashamed that Dad's promise had died with him, so I started sending money. $200 a month to cover tuition. But I didn't have $200 a month. I was barely surviving myself. That's when I met Javier. The pieces were falling into place in a way I didn't want them to. You borrowed from the cartel to pay for Ramon's daughter's education. Started that way. $200 a month seemed manageable, but they charged interest, compounding interest. Within a year, I owed $15,000. Within 2 years, 40,000. By the time I found the ranch in probate and started trying to claim it, I owed 400,000. All because I tried to honor Dad's promise to a dead man's daughter. I sat back, processing this. Tyler had done something horrible, but the seed of it was trying to do something good. Didn't excuse the murder, the fraud, the lies, but it complicated the story in a way I hadn't expected. Elena doesn't know, Tyler continued, thinks the money came from Dad's trust. I never told her the truth. Didn't want her carrying the guilt of what I'd done to pay for her education. She graduated last year, bachelor's in social work, working with immigrant families in Portland, living the life Ramon wanted for her. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know I'm not just a monster. I made monstrous choices, but they started from trying to help someone. And because Elena deserves to know the truth, but not from me. If you could find a way to tell her, to explain, I'd be grateful. She should know her father's sacrifice wasn't forgotten. Wade spoke for the first time. This doesn't change what you did to Jack or to Connor. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness or understanding. I'm asking Connor to finish something I started. To make sure Elena knows she mattered, that her father mattered, that some good came from all this pain. We talked for another hour. Tyler asked about the ranch, seemed genuinely happy to hear about Second Sunrise, about the veterans finding purpose there. He asked if I'd found anyone special, laughed when I said the only female in my life was a 58-year-old woman who called every night to make sure I'd eaten. He told me prison stories, carefully edited, the kind that suggested life inside was hard, but he was managing. As visiting time ended, Tyler stood, hesitated, then extended his hand across the table. I looked at it for a long moment, this gesture from a man who'd murdered our father and stolen my inheritance. Part of me wanted to refuse, to leave him hanging as some small revenge for the years of pain. But I thought about Martinez's words, about carrying forgiveness being lighter than carrying hate. I shook his hand. Take care of the ranch, Tyler said. And Connor, I really am proud of what you've built there. Dad would be too. The drive back was quiet, Wade respecting my need to process. Halfway home, I finally spoke. You think he was telling the truth about Elena? Easy enough to verify. I can track down Elena Cortez, see if the timeline matches. But yeah, I think he was telling the truth, or at least his version of it. I stared out at the high desert landscape rolling past, thinking about the complicated math of redemption. Tyler had done an irredeemably evil thing, but he'd also tried to honor Dad's promise to a working man's daughter. Both things were true. The world wasn't as simple as victim and villain. Wade's investigator found Elena Cortez within a week. 24 years old, bachelor's degree from Portland State, working at a nonprofit helping immigrant families navigate the legal system. Her college transcripts showed consistent payments from an education fund, amounts and timing matching what Tyler had described. I drove to Portland on a Saturday, met her at a coffee shop in the Pearl District. She was small, dark-haired, with her father's gentle eyes according to the photo I'd found of Ramon. Mr. Blake? She stood when I approached. Your message said this was about my father. We sat. I bought us both coffee I didn't drink, and I told her the truth. About Ramon working for Dad, about Dad's promise to fund her education, about how that promise had indirectly led to Tyler's involvement with the cartel and everything that followed. She cried when I told her about Tyler sending money he didn't have, borrowing from dangerous men to keep her in school. I never knew. I thought it was my father's savings. I thought he'd planned ahead. He did plan ahead. Your father worked for my dad for 20 years, saved everything he could because he believed in your future. My father made a promise to support that dream. And my brother, despite everything else he did wrong, he tried to honor that promise. None of it was your fault. But your father died because of it. Your brother's in prison because of it. My father died because Tyler made a terrible choice. My brother's in prison because he committed crimes. You were just a kid trying to get an education. The adults in this story made the decisions. You don't carry their consequences. I gave her an envelope. Inside was a check for $20,000 drawn on Second Sunrise Ranch's account. Your father worked for my family for 20 years. He was loyal, hardworking, and by all accounts, a good man. This isn't payment for anything. It's just acknowledgement that your family gave mine 2 decades of honest work and deserves to be remembered for it. She tried to refuse, but I insisted. Told her about the ranch, about the veterans program, about trying to build something that honored the sacrifices of good people like Ramon. She listened, wiping tears, and finally accepted the check. "Can I ask you something?" she said as we were leaving. "Of course. Your brother, is he really sick?" "Cancer. He's dying. I'm going to write him. Tell him thank you for trying to help even when he couldn't afford to. Maybe it'll help him knowing I don't hate him." I drove back to the ranch thinking about forgiveness, about how it wasn't a switch you flipped, but a muscle you exercised. I didn't fully forgive Tyler and maybe never would, but I could see him as more than the worst thing he'd done. Could acknowledge the complexity of a man who tried to do good even while doing evil. The ranch turned profitable in its third year. Not wildly so, but enough to sustain itself, pay Carlos and me fair wages, fund the Second Sunrise program without relying entirely on donations. The Veterans Program expanded to 12 residents, then 16. We added a therapy partnership with the VA, brought in counselors once a week, created a job placement network for graduates who were ready to move on. Martinez became my assistant manager, helping oversee day-to-day operations while I focused on the nonprofit side. Chen took over the horse training program, working with residents to build confidence through working with animals. Rodriguez started a garden that fed the entire ranch, teaching sustainable agriculture and giving people with trust issues something living they could nurture. Margaret moved to Burns when she turned 60, said she was tired of driving 2 hours each way for Sunday dinners, bought a small house in town, got involved with local veterans organizations, became an unofficial grandmother to every person who came through Second Sunrise. Her presence made the place feel more like home, less like an institution. I never married, never had kids of my own. The ranch and the program became my family. 20 veterans a year came through, stayed 6 months to a year, learned skills and found stability before moving on to whatever came next. Some stayed in ranching, some went to college, some just found jobs and apartments and the simple dignity of being able to support themselves. Each one took a piece of my father's legacy with them. Not land or money or physical inheritance, but the belief that hard work and good stewardship mattered. That showing up every day and doing right by the land and the people who depended on you was its own kind of nobility. Tyler died in prison 2 years after our visit, pancreatic cancer, just like the doctors predicted. He'd spent his last months writing letters to me, to Elena, to people he'd wronged over the years, trying to make whatever peace he could from a cell in federal lockup. The warden called to tell me, asked if I wanted to claim the body. I did. Buried him next to Dad on that hill overlooking the south pasture, the one where Mom was buried. Put a simple stone marker, Tyler James Blake, 1987 to 2026, son and brother, made mistakes and paid for them. At the funeral, it was just me, Margaret, Wade, Carlos, and Elena. Small gathering for a complicated man. The priest said words about redemption and forgiveness. Elena read a letter Tyler had sent her, thanking her for writing to him, for not adding her hatred to the weight he already carried. I didn't cry until I was alone on the ranch that night, sitting on the porch watching the sun set. Cried for the brother I'd had as a kid, the one who taught me to ride bikes and defended me from bullies. Cried for the man he'd become, broken by war and pride and the desperate need to matter. Cried for Dad, who tried to raise us right and paid for Tyler's failure with his life. But I also felt something lifting, the burden of hate, of unresolved anger, of the complicated grief that had lived in my chest since this whole nightmare began. Tyler was gone. The story was finished. Now I could focus on what came next. 5 years after moving to the ranch, I stood on that same porch watching a new group of veterans arrive. Among them was a young woman, 25, Marine Corps vet with a prosthetic arm and the haunted look I'd seen in my own mirror once. Her name was Sarah. She'd lost her arm in Afghanistan, struggled with PTSD and survivor's guilt, ended up homeless in Seattle before the VA referred her to Second Sunrise. I walked down to greet her, extending my hand. "Welcome home." She looked at the ranch, the mountains in the distance, the cattle grazing peacefully. "This is really home, for as long as you need it to be." Over the next 6 months, I watched her transform, watched her learn to work cattle one-handed, adapting equipment and techniques the same way Martinez had adapted to his prosthetic. Watched her start sleeping through the night after months of 3-hour increments. Watched her smile again, first tentatively, then genuinely. One evening she found me in the barn, asked if we could talk. We sat on hay bales, the same spot where Wade had convinced me to visit Tyler. I wanted to thank you, she said, for this place, for not giving up on us. A lot of programs talk about helping veterans, but this one actually does it. You're doing the work. I just provided the space. It's more than space. It's proof that we can heal, that we're not broken beyond repair, that somebody believes we're worth the investment. She paused. I've been accepted to Montana State Agricultural Business Program. Starts in the fall. I'm going to be a rancher. Pride swelled in my chest. This was what it was all about. Not the land or the cattle or the property value. The people, the transformation, the second chances. That's great, Sarah. You'll do well because of what you taught me here. Because you showed me I could do hard things even with one arm. Because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Dad's letters spread out like I'd done 100 times before. But this time I added something new, a letter of my own. Dad, it's been 6 years since I inherited the ranch. 6 years since I learned the truth about how you died, about what Tyler did, about all of it. I want to tell you what I've built here, what I've done with the legacy you left me. The ranch is profitable, not wildly so, but sustainable. We run 200 head of cattle, maintain the land properly, practice the stewardship you believed in. Carlos oversees the operation and he's better at it than I'll ever be, but I'm learning, getting better every year. But more importantly, I built something you never imagined. Second Sunrise Ranch, a program for veterans transitioning to civilian life. We house 16 at a time, teach them ranching and agriculture, give them purpose and community while they heal. Over 100 veterans have come through in 5 years. Some stay in agriculture. Some move on to other things. All of them leave stronger than they arrived. I think you'd be proud of that, not just preserving the land, but using it to serve something bigger. That's stewardship, right? Not just taking care of what's yours, but using it to take care of others. Tyler's gone now. Died 2 years ago. I buried him next to you and Mom. He confessed to everything before he died, tried to make what peace he could. I don't fully forgive him, but I don't hate him anymore either. He was broken in ways neither of us understood until too late. I think about your letter sometimes. The one where you said I had Mom's heart, and that's what the land needed. You were right. The land doesn't need someone hard and unyielding. It needs someone who listens, who cares, who sees ranching as service rather than ownership. I'm not perfect at it. I make mistakes. I get frustrated when equipment breaks down or cattle get sick or the market prices drop. But I show up every day and do the work. That's all any of us can do, right? Show up, work hard, try to be better tomorrow than we were today. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Thank you for leaving me this land and this legacy. Thank you for being the kind of father who thought about his son's future even when facing his own death. I hope I'm making you proud. Your son, always Connor. I folded the letter, put it with the others, not to send anywhere, just to write, to acknowledge the conversation that had been happening in my head for 6 years. That spring, I turned 34. The ranch was in its best condition since I'd inherited it. Second Sunrise was expanding, adding a second bunkhouse to accommodate 20 residents at a time. Martinez was talking about marriage to a woman he'd met in town. Chen had been accepted to veterinary school. Rodriguez was opening a restaurant in Burns, specializing in farm-to-table cuisine using produce from her garden. Margaret turned 63, still driving out most Sundays, still calling every night to make sure I'd eaten real food. Wade was semi-retired but still handled the legal work for Second Sunrise, refused to charge more than filing fees. Carlos was teaching his grandson to ranch, creating a third-generation connection to the Blakeland. Life was good, not perfect. The ranch still required constant work, constant problem-solving, constant vigilance. But good, purposeful, meaningful in ways that had nothing to do with property values or profit margins. One evening in late May, after a long day moving cattle to summer pasture, I sat on the porch watching the sun set. The light turned everything gold and orange, the mountains in the distance going purple, the high desert singing its evening song. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. Orphaned at 13, raised in a group home, 2 tours in Afghanistan, VA hospitals and PTSD, and the long road to something resembling peace. The probate fight, the cartel attack, Tyler's confession and death, all of it leading to this moment, this place, this purpose. The ranch would outlast me just like it had outlasted Dad and would outlast whatever came next. That was the nature of land, of legacy. It persisted while we passed through, each generation trying to leave it better than we found it. I'd done that, built something meaningful, honored Dad's vision while creating my own, turned pain and betrayal into purpose and healing. The Blake Ranch would continue long after I was gone. The veterans would keep coming, keep healing, keep learning that they mattered and had worth beyond their service. The land would keep producing, keep sustaining, keep teaching the hard lessons about persistence and stewardship. And somewhere in all of that, in the daily work, in the small victories, in the quiet satisfaction of a job done right, I'd found something I'd been searching for my entire life. I'd found home. Not the place, though the ranch was that too, but home as a concept, as belonging, as the knowledge that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. The sun dropped below the mountains. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky, thousands of them, more than you could ever see in the city. The kind of stars Dad and I used to watch on summer nights when I was small, before everything fell apart. I raised my coffee cup toward the South Pasture Hill, toward the 3 graves there. "We did all right, Dad. We did all right." The wind carried my words across the valley, past the barn and the cattle and the bunkhouses full of veterans finding their way home. Tomorrow I'd get up before dawn, make coffee in Dad's mug, and do the work. Feed cattle, mend fence, help someone heal. Show up, persist, serve something bigger than myself. That was the legacy, not the land or the money or the inheritance. The choice to be worthy of the faith others placed in you. And every morning was a new chance to prove you deserved it. Every morning, another sunrise on the Blake Ranch. Home.